I already know it, man. Yeah, that's from California.
I won't even look at these stuff. Nothing private here. None of my stuff is
When I do that with my truck, I can't see. That's what I
Like sitting up front, me and watch.
carbon collars and speakers. Anytime you get those two on there, you got a picture of it. They're all here to see what
I wish they would update this actually got the plugs. Mini crap on it. That has
everybody be tired of talking about that.
No, it'll be added probably.
See where he is.
We're just gonna hold off a few minutes. Our last commissioner is tied up in traffic. Is he here? Oh, wonderful. Yes. Okay, now that we're all here, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the City of Callaway Board of Commissioners. It is Tuesday, March 25th, 2025. It's 6 p.m. If y'all will stand with me, Commissioner Pelletier will do the pledge, Commissioner Ayers will do the invocation, Commissioner Ayers will lead us in the pledge.
All right, Lord, we thank you for allowing us to gather today. And we pray for your guidance in making decisions for our city and citizens. We thank you for our first responders who keep us safe every day. And we ask that you bless them and their families. We thank you for our citizens and employees. And we pray for you bless them and with peace and success. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. one presentation tonight, Nancy Viejo, who is going to speak about fluoride in the water.
Thank you, Callaway, for having me. My name is Nancy Viejo. I am the State Committee woman, Republican for Bay County, and the legislative chair for Monster Lake. I'm here in my capacity, however, and not just two positions. So I'm very adamant about this fluoridation since Dr. Latipo put out the information. And I'm going to just read you some things that I tell everybody, and I will give you the paperwork that I have so you can make copies if you'd like. So State Surgeon General Joseph Latipo announced guidance recommending against community water fluoridation due to the numerous psychiatric risks associated with fluoride exposure. Fluoride is a natural occurring chemical compound present in groundwater, fresh and saltwater, rainwater, soil, plants, and foods. Community water fluoridation is the process of adjusting the amount of fluoride in drinking water to a level recommended to prevent tooth decay. Historically, community water fluoridation was considered to be a method to systematically, through ingestion, deliver fluoride to all community members. However, currently, many municipalities across the U.S. and several European countries, including Austria, Belgium, France, Germany, Italy, Norway, Sweden, have eliminated their water fluoridation. To date, in the state of Florida, 40 counties have taken the fluoride out of the water. So there are very little counties left, and we're hoping that a county will listen to this. Today, the fluoride is widely available from multiple sources, including topical fluoride such as toothpaste, mouthwashes, and fluoride applications by dental providers. Evidence shows fluoride strengthens teeth, making them more decay resistant. However, additional research is being conducted to review the impacts of overall fluoride exposure in the population. Floridians should be aware of safety concerns related to systemic fluoride exposure, including adverse effects in children, reducing IQ, cognitive impairment, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Increased behavioral problems in children whose mothers ingested fluoride during pregnancy. Accumulation of fluoride in the pineal gland causes sleep cycle disturbance. Skeletal fluorosis, which could increase the risk of bone fracture. Potential risk of premature menarche in adolescent girls. Potential suppression of the thyroid gland by inhibiting iodine absorption. So, I'm asking, we will save a great amount of money in Bay County for the price that they're putting in the water. It is detrimental to everyone's health, especially the children and elderly people my age. And it affects bone density, which already starts deteriorating at about 60 years old. So we don't need this in our water. We don't need to drink it. It's okay for dentists to put it on their teeth. However, they tell you do not swallow for a reason. Thank you. I will leave these for you.
I've got a question for you. I didn't get an answer from either, not one commissioner, but I emailed about the Bay County.
Thank you.
Have you heard any feedback?
I
They're
spoke,
no on.
yeah, I spoke in front of the county commission last month, or the beginning of this month. I forget, I'm in so many meetings, but they didn't really say anything. I know that our rec chair, Joe Bishop, has been in contact with them, and he's been trying to get the effort done also. So I think they're considering it. There might be one person on the board that may not want it,
I do know there's a bill before the House and the Senate to, you know, to make all counties take it out of the water, so it may be resolved at a state level.
It is a bill, but it's not moving at this moment, so I'm gonna check on that tomorrow as well.
Okay, thank you.
So, you know, I put a letter to us to kind of review, about a month ago, 3 weeks, or 3 meetings ago. Can we look at that again, and it's just a suggestion that they remove the fluoride from the water from Callaway, and that we would be in support of it?
I won't sign it.
I won't sign it. That's two, it's got to be.
It's all, the water's treated in one place.
What's that?
The water's treated at one place.
Yes, they spend $93,000 a year on putting fluoride in the water, and, I would think they'd be all for removing it. That's just one little bit of expense that they can.
Well, really, this was just a presentation, we didn't even have this on the agenda as a discussion item, so we're kind of beyond what we should be doing right now.
Well,
I mean, you can put it on, the agenda again,
Okay,
if you want to, you can put it on the next agenda.
all right.
Okay, we'll go on to the mayor's instructions, do we have any additions or deletions?
Yes, ma'am. We have a change order for the Bull Park Community Center. These are just some, basically the last steps that we think need to be done to complete that, to give us a professional finish look. We'd like to add it on for consideration.
We have a motion to add that item on.
Motion to add, Bull Park Community Center change order.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion in a second, all in favor of adding that item on, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. And as far as public participation, I know we have some new faces in the crowd. The way public participation works, we can speak on any of the agenda items, you can speak on all of the agenda items if you so choose. So what I need you to do, once you're recognized, come up to the podium. If you choose, please state your name and address for the record. And then your 3 minutes will start. You have 3 minutes to speak on each item. At the end of the meeting, we have public participation. If there's something that you want to bring up that was not on the agenda, you can do the same thing there, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak about whatever item that is. So we will go on to approval of minutes. We've got the minutes of the March 11th, 2025 regular meeting. Were there any changes or comments on those minutes? Anyone? If not, I entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. If there's no discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, and, financial statements for February, there, I just have one question for Mr. Schultz, yes or no? Were we able to get our annual report filed have we filed it, or will it be done by the end of the month?
Should be, I received it yesterday, the audit is complete.
Wonderful. We got the joint venture, so I figured we'd probably be able to wrap it all up.
Yeah.
That'll be sent out tomorrow. Wonderful. Okay, we go on to agenda item 1. This is a public hearing, so we'll open the public hearing. And agenda item 1 is ordinance number 1114, land development regulation amendment, recreational equipment storage. City attorney?
This is ordinance number 1114, an ordinance of the city of Callaway, Florida, amending the city's land development regulation to modify the parking standards for major recreational equipment on residential property, defining major recreational equipment, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing for an effective date.
And this is the second reading. City manager, did you have anything to say?
Yes, we did make some additional modifications to do some clarification. If y'all received, if you got one from over there, they are highlighted in blue, and I will bring them out, and we can discuss them just so we can make sure everybody understands. Under recreational equipment, general requirements A, section number 3, you notice we put a limit of one major recreational. This has to do with, people that have vacant lots next to their house. If it is adjoining the parcel, and I'll read it, major recreational equipment shall not be parked or stored on any vacant lot except where such vacant lot adjoins a lot on which a principal structure under the same ownership is located. We have limited it to one recreational vehicle, and also, Kevin, we need to put on there that, it must be registered to the property owner. That's to keep people from parking their stuff on somebody else's
I
lot.
agree with that.
Just so everybody understands, we allow one recreational vehicle at your house, that if you own the lot next to your house, and it's not one parcel, if we can tell, if the lot is still split and it's an adjoining lot, you'll be able to put one there if you are, the owner of the parcel and it is contiguous and it does touch. And it has to be registered to that parcel owner. The second one is under residential requirements. No. Yeah, it's under B, under recreational equipment, section B, number 3. May be parked anywhere on a residential premises. We've added except within the vision triangle. That's to make sure that, we just wanna make sure that everyone understands when you park it, you cannot obstruct view. The next one is under section 7, under the same thing, where it says, must be well maintained in operable condition and must properly be licensed. We put and registered, we added and registered, in accordance with all the laws of the state. We added the sentence at the end, unlicensed or unregistered major recreational equipment, and that includes dune buggies and race cars.
Should this be where you say it's registered to the property owner?
So, yeah, so is it on just on the vacant lots, or do you want it,
No, this is not vacant lots.
I know that, I guess my question is, this is a place to solve that, where if you want it registered to the owner, we can put it in the first sentence here, where we say licensed and registered to the property owner. That would cover in front of your house and on your vacant lot.
Fine. It's whatever you want to do. You're the attorney.
No, it's just, if you wanted, if somebody's, son or grandfather wants to keep their RV at their house, he can't do it.
Yeah, it's not allowed on the vacant lot.
I'm talking about, what about your primary house?
So, yeah, and it's licensed, registered.
Registered, if you added registered to the owner, property owner,
To the
here,
property
here in 7, that would solve both
Yeah.
issues.
All right, so can I add 2 property
I
taxes?
agree.
We're just clarifying it. And then, under section 2, under the definitions, under the definition of major recreational equipment, where we talk about utility trailers, we did list non-commercial.
In other words, it can't be a trailer with a company name on the side that sits
Can't be
in
their
your
big work,
driveway like
can't be their big
this.
work truck, it's their stuff that just sits there. And those are all of the changes that we've, that staff has requested. As presented.
Discussion?
No, I had concerns, I talked to Attorney Ogles and City Manager called me, so what I had concerns with was from,
Taken care of.
It's actually pretty interesting, we received the same comment from multiple people about the vacant lot issue. Yeah, so we needed to make sure we got that clarified.
And I did get one comment off Hugh Drive, where they're concerned that it's gonna be true restricted, more than one RV type vehicle not being allowed. But that's the only one I've received. Also did get a phone call from Mr. Shaner talking about big RVs in the front yard. But I think that's been a problem, and this new clarifications that we have are needed. I personally don't like big RVs in the front either, but I don't like big boats up there. But I think we should press ahead and deal with whatever we need to do with that.
Anybody else? Any comments?
honestly, and I've definitely been an RVer and had multiple RVs, but, at no time did I put them on the front yard because that was not only, discourteous to my neighbors, but also, front yard is for flowers and plants and beauty. So even if I wanted to, my wife wouldn't let me do it because that's not what should be on your front yard. With that being said, unfortunately, this ordinance allows you to put it on the front yard. So I'm definitely in a quandary about that, but actually going around and looking at various things, I mean, even out today, I went by a property that had, 3 cars and 3 trailers in their front yard out there. And we've tried in the past, as Commissioner Pelletier will attest to, and y'all, when y'all on the commission tried to stop some of the parking in the front yard. And we ran into obstacles there, on the commission ran into obstacles, so that did get passed. But, unfortunately, it's gonna take this ordinance in order to get those 3 trailers off of that property that I saw today out there. And there were commercial equipment, this kind of thing. So, I don't like approving anything on the front yard like that, like an RV. But with the restrictions that we have in there, including the triangle, but with the restrictions that we have and the size of the properties now as far as the front yards, and the restrictions of, not touching that, the front of your, the Callaway's front of your property, the right of way, so this will actually, help clean up and clarify what the code enforcement officer is gonna have to go through. So it's pretty cut and dry, and I've mentioned at the last meeting, everybody needs to understand what's in this ordinance. But, I've got no calls except calls related to not passing it. But, I don't have to go along with this ordinance.
Mayor, can I add some comments on Commissioner, as you well know, for years we've ignored the boats. So when we talk about RVs in the front yard, we have more boats in the front yard than you can shake a leg at. And we've ignored that portion of our ordinance for years and years. My wife and I drove down the street the other day, saw a boat about the size of this room in the front yard. And humongous. I mean, humongous. And, of course, that boat is impeding. So there's a lot of things in this ordinance that's gonna clean up. And the citizens wanted to park RVs, but they don't understand how restrictive this is. Very restrictive. And it is gonna clean up the 2 and 3 trailers. There's quite a few, that I've seen also. I think all of us have seen this in driving cities. I just wanted to pass, talk about boats, because we've not done anything about boats. And about every other home has got a boat in the front yard.
We've got a lot more boats in the
A lot more boats than RVs.
Just don't let a boat be in the yard,
Yeah.
just a boat, not 2
Yeah.
boats,
And
not
we
a
had
boat in an
huge
RV.
boats in the front yard. I mean, I'm 35 footers. They're big. But this one here had to be 50, 60 foot. It was a huge boat.
That'd be a big deal.
Well,
I don't even know how you got it in there. Had to crane it in.
They can afford the yard, they can afford the boat.
unfortunately, we've done a little pick and choosing on our current ordinance. And very honestly, there have been those that have used that as an example of why if we're allowing boats, why not allow the RVs? Well, most of the boats, we may have a couple of big boats out there, but most of them are small boats. And most of them are on the, certainly on the driveway and not really an issue. But it's a boat, so we've been accused of being favorite, in that way. And, this will take it out of it, so you can have a boat or you can have an RV, but you can't have both on the front yard.
That's right. Anybody else? Anything? Does anybody in the audience want to speak this now?
Christine Smallwood, 7303 Rogers Drive. I just wanted to make sure that I understood Mr. Cook's proposed amendment, because I would ask you to consider that it not be just the registered owner, but the resident. Not all property is necessarily owned by all of the residents that reside on a piece of property. So I would just ask you not to limit it to ownership, especially with the amount of rental property that we have within the city. I think if you extended it out to at least confirm that the folks that are there have a legal right to reside there despite not owning the land, that might avoid some problems. That's the only thing I'll bring to your consideration.
If you're renting a house, if you have an RV, that property's not gonna be in your name, so your boat's not gonna be, your RV's not gonna be registered in the name of the property. So,
Owner slash tenant.
yeah, tenant.
I would say that more than likely, the tenant is not renting both lots. They're renting the house and the lot, they're not renting the property next door.
But we had changed this, that it had to, even at the prime property, it had to be registered to the owner of the property, so.
Yeah, and I'm sure they have, but I'm just saying that,
Yeah,
just because you're a tenant,
yes.
you're not the registered owner, so you would not be able to park it on a vacant lot.
Yeah,
Because you're not renting that vacant lot, you're renting the house and
Yes.
that property.
from what I understood, you can't put anything on a vacant lot anyway, is that what we're saying?
No,
No, it's changed.
We're not saying
we changed it a little bit.
Yeah, we're saying that you can put one,
One,
on a vacant lot.
if
If it's
attached
adjacent to, where a residence.
So you can put one on a vacant lot and one on your lot.
as long as it's adjacent.
And as long as you own both, and like, yeah, so there's restrictions. Yes, sir. Oh,
Just want to bring it to your attention, we've had incidents in the past where people have allowed people to stay on their adjacent lots, and we've had transient tenancy on those lots because people allow it to do it. They'll get there, we'll end up with a big death ring or something like that going on. Sheriff's office can't do anything about what you're allowing on the property next door. I don't have any way to enforce that's gonna be another part of the city. But it has caused some issues for us in the past where people have let people move campers onto the property. One instance, the people let them take their camper and move it next door and start living in it. And we had to get them to move. We had to work with code enforcement to get that taken care of. But you have to be very careful about people just moving campers on property because we're gonna end up people living in them. And I do know people should have a right to own campers, but you've gotta be, there's a reason that you have ordinances to control it. So just make sure you understand that the broader you paint it with a brush, the harder it is for us to control the transients living inside the city of Callaway. Thank you.
We're not-
nothing on a vacant lot?
We're not allowing hookup, we're not allowing anything except.
And you're
But
not,
I can't control that. I'm just letting you know that, so if somebody moves on there, it's gonna be a process getting them off.
That's up to you.
Yeah,
I mean, that's no living or sleeping on it, but he's right, it'll be a code enforcement issue.
I remember that quite a few there.
Or do we say nothing on a vacant lot? Or do we leave the
Well,
language?
You know, I know 2 or 3 RVs right now that people are living in. Okay,
We need to get
yeah,
that
they're
taken
not
care
supposed
of.
to, that's
I
right.
know it's not supposed to, but you know, they gotta catch them too. You know, and I don't know, I understand about the vacant lot, and I think we need to listen to our deputy and maybe we just wanna eliminate that. I don't We haven't in the past,
No.
so that's just something that, in the past, we've not allowed anything on vacant lots.
Staff is okay with the recommendation of nothing on a vacant lot.
What's our code enforcement?
Staff is okay with it.
You okay with it?
Hey, did you, Mr. Carnahan, come on up?
We speak loud and
You do?
with our eyes.
Good.
Jeff Carnahan, 7752 Shadow Bay Drive. I brought this up to Bob Pelletier at the board meeting. I own 7752 and 7748, they're adjacent to each other. I have a boat and I have an RV. I cannot keep both of them on my property. So I asked him, well, can I keep the boat on the property next door? He says he didn't know. I don't think it's fair. I pay taxes and everything else just like a house for that piece of property, and I pay taxes on my house property. There's no reason why I shouldn't be able to have two RVs, two boat trailer, whatever. Why can't I have a boat or whatever on that vacant piece of property? It's always cut and everything else. It's not an eyesore or anything.
It's attached to your property?
Yes,
It's adjacent to it,
it's right there.
right next door, yeah,
Yeah,
House.
it's adjacent. And he's got a separate address, a separate mailbox.
for both of them, yes.
It's adjacent.
I mean, I'm a taxpayer on two pieces of property. I should be able to keep two RVs or whatever. And that's the way I feel about that.
That's the reason why I discussed that with the attorney, because he brought it up. I didn't use your name.
No, but I don't care.
Well, I do. I don't use citizens' name, when I discuss things. But, he does have two mailboxes, two different physical addresses for that property, and it's adjacent. It's not separated. And he does keep them.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Don't know.
Yes, sir.
Keep the RV in front of the house and put the boat.
You can't put it in
Can't
the
put one in the
I
front.
cannot put it back there. There's no way I can get it back there.
property the way it's set up.
I got a drainage ditch
Hello.
on my property.
So, I definitely understand the not wanting anybody to be living in them as, an RV owner and also as somebody that has property up north in another county, and I have enjoyed my piece of property up there, but now there are, I'm not joking, and don't take this the wrong way, I'm not trying to be facetious, you know, y'all know how I am. There's a meth trailer there, and I can't get the county to do anything about it. So I'm definitely receptive to that kind of stuff, because they own the property, they own the trailer. I mean, you'll hear them out there for hours on end trying to get their little generator started. And then if you've never smelled that substance being made, you'll never have a question about it once you smell it. And I can't get the county or even a friend of mine that works for the ATF to do anything about it. So I understand that as Callaway, we don't want that right next to, you know, I wouldn't want that right next to my house, even though I plan on having my RV in my driveway every once in a while. So it's understandable. Hopefully it's something that we can prevent. Obviously, there is the language in the current code and the proposed one about living in there. As far as it being an owner, like repeated people have said, that you shouldn't have to own that property to enjoy having that item on the property. So, you know, whoever rents it, not to make the attorneys in here have to lose their mind on how they think about it, but you guys understand how a trust works. My RV is owned by my trust. So, I mean, obviously I own my parcel, but there is legal ways to get around with it. There's a reason why, I don't know if any of y'all are sports car owners, you know, if you see a bunch of sports cars, a bunch of Lamborghinis with a Montana tag on it, there's a reason why it's registered that way. And that's because they started LLC, registered in Montana, and import all kinds of stuff, give all kinds of good things. And you can do the same thing with your RV, with your boat, with anything that you want. I mean, you can do that with your vehicle if you want. But just more stuff to take into consideration. Sorry to add the whole, like, yeah, you could go on the trust and own it and do all that, but, hopefully that is something that you all can take into consideration too.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, I would
That was
also
nice.
add to that, when someone comes in and sets up a utility account for a house, they have to provide, if they're not the owner of the parcel, they have to provide a lease or a rental agreement. Those are actually scanned in and they are available. So we always could know who is at that residence. To an extent, you know, unless somebody puts it in their wife's name, but it's.
So hopefully you can match up that name and the
Yeah.
lease to the name that the vehicle is registered to. Yes, there was somebody over there that wanted to speak.
You betcha.
I could just see an arm.
Excellent, excellent. Dave Raggio, 6939 U Drive, so I'm gonna have Person, read the ordinance, okay? I'm the one who says, or I hope to get a couple more vehicles from a recreational point of view. Florida's awesome, and I'll let you know, I do have an RV, but we use the RV to no kidding skedaddle when they got doggone hurricanes come, so that's one reason there. And I was hoping, living on the water, having at least 2 boats, so boat trailers and all this type of stuff, if you are too prohibitive, it impacts a person who lives on the water. And I want to put a boat trailer on the side of my house, and when the boat's not in the water, it's winter, I want to bring the boat up and winterize it and put it outside, so I'm one of those people who exceed your number, but just here living in Florida, trying to cope with all the different challenges that are presented. And that's one of the reasons I presented, I was like, hey, I think we should increase it. I keep my stuff pretty tight, everything's in good order, but that's one of my employees here. Second one, in a minute 57, how does this apply to private drives and things like that, parcels that are off, not on city property, city drives?
That's a good question.
Yeah, can
You know, we've got a private drive right next to my house, Sunrise Point. And, we have 3 lots down there, one of them has a huge boat on it. And the other is, you know, the boat belongs to someone that owns that lot, but there's no house there. So I don't know, and it's a huge boat too, it's probably a 40-footer.
Yeah, so I own some other property on a private drive, and
Can you put your boats down by your dock? Do you have a dock?
I do.
Can you just put your trailer and boats down there in the back of the house? And not-
Well, I'm one of those guys, the back of the house is the street, when I consider the front of my house.
Yeah, we
is
drove
the-
past your house today. It looks like you could put it by the water, but,
Possibly, and that's why I'm trying to get the specifics of what and who's doing what to whom and when, and where. And that's the reason for that. But my private drive question still stands. I was wondering how that's gonna be addressed or what direction you're looking there, because if it does apply, then I say, awesome, but now will the city pay that, become a city drive? If this applies. That's ultimately the also.
I would say it can't be in the public right of way, but if there's a private road, then it's gonna be.
It'll be
It's graded, whether it was an
considered out of
easement or
sight,
not.
out of mind, correct, Bonnie? If Bonnie can't see it from public right of way, then she cannot address it.
Yeah, that could be a possible private issue if it's multiple people share that private drive via an easement, you know, if you're inheriting the easement, but the city wouldn't be involved in that.
And then typically that would flow into a HOA or whatever the private stuff is going there. Okay?
Okay.
3 seconds, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Shannon?
so did we drop the vacant lot? Did we drop the vacant lot?
No, we haven't decided. Please, y'all, don't talk, he's trying to speak.
If you went around and knocked on every door in Callaway, I believe you'd find people don't wanna sit on their front porch and look at a motor home sitting there blocking their view. I know I certainly don't want to. I'd be more considerate of that with my neighbors. I wouldn't do them that way, I wouldn't want them doing me that way. What they do in their backyard, I don't care. What they do in their side yard, I don't care. But I don't wanna sit on my front porch and look at a motor home. I'm speaking for the most people, you know, that You knocked on the doors, I'm sure they'd tell you, no, I don't want it that. And yet, you know, a few weeks ago, a small group of citizens approached the commission about parking RVs in the driveway in front of their home. Our commissioners caved like a cookie to try to please a small group of citizens. Does our commissioners want to make Callaway look like an RV parking lot? I don't want travel trailers. You know, I don't like the looks of travel trailers either, sitting where I can't see around and blocking my view. I think you're opening a can of worms here that are gonna be hard to round up when they get loose. So, you know, these big motor homes and stuff, they don't belong in the driveway where people, you know, can't see around them. It's just ridiculous. But I'd like to say, I think if you knock on every door in Callaway, most of the citizens say, no, I don't wanna look at them things. I wanna enjoy the view. But, you know, my personal, I don't care what you do in your backyard or the side yard. But, you know, I enjoy sitting on my porch and looking at the birds and front yard, like Commissioner Griggs said, is for flowers and things. Not ugly travel trailers or motor homes, especially them big ones, the huge ones. And that's about it. But I hope you'll look at, you know, what most of the people want instead of what a few want.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Unfortunately, I've not heard from anybody that's opposed to this other than Mr. Shamer.
Now they're used to getting kicked around, don't do no good to complain.
Karen Custer, 216 Liney Road Drive. I recall last year in front of the commission, it was discussed, people just wanted to put their travel trailers in their front yards. And every one of you unanimously voted no. Now, somehow we got to, not only can you put a travel trailer in your yard, you could put a big boat, or you could put whatever you want to, basically, in your front yard. So the reason was last year, put the stuff in your backyard. My next door neighbor, he has a total trash yard, but it's all in the backyard. So I don't care. I had to spend $6,500 putting up the fence, so I didn't have to look at my neighbor's junk. Okay, and my next door neighbor built a really expensive RV thing in the back of his yard because you weren't allowed to store RVs in the front of the house. And there were a lot of people who built really expensive garages and things to keep their stuff in. Now we're saying, well, you can just put it in your front yard now. You don't have to put it in a garage and hide it away from people. And the big thing that I brought up last year is when people come through, and we're all getting older, we're gonna wanna sell our houses and move into something that, you know, better, a lot of us. Well, when they come driving down the street and they see junk in this yard, junkyard, 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 you know what? They tell the realtor, I don't wanna live on the street, show me another house. Because these people don't respect their yards. They have junk, they all have junk in their yard. And it reduces our property values, it makes our houses difficult to sell, because people come down and they wanna live in a nice, clean neighborhood. When I bought my house, it was a nice, clean neighborhood, everybody had their stuff in the backyard, they have fences up to hide the stuff, you know, so that everybody's house looks presentable. And so I would say, please, just vote no on this again this year. We're taking an ordinance that last year we would have objected to and people did object to, and now turned it into a really bad ordinance where you could put any kind of junk in your yard. It doesn't have to be in a garage or anything like that. It can just be out there in the open. And frankly, I think if you can afford to buy 3 boats and an RV and all these other things, you can afford to put them in the backyard and pay for a fence or store them in some kind of a storage facility for those things. So that's just what I feel about it, and I hope y'all will really think about this. How did we get from RVs in the front yard, travel trailers in the front yard last year, to suddenly allowing everything? please think of your property value. Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak? I didn't see anybody. I think you wanted to say something, Commissioner Pelletier.
A couple of things, I kind of, we went from no RVs, but as you all know, for years, we've had huge boats in the front yard. So in my mind, what's the difference between having a huge boat in the front yard and an RV in the front yard? None of us have talked about, except for the RV owners, talked about why are you allowing boats in the front yard and not allowing RVs? You know, so that's kind of, you know, what I was looking at as a commissioner. You know, we're allowing one but not allowing the other, and trying to be fair to all the property owners. Two is that I think our deputy has a good example here that we need to start thinking, because we can ask code enforcement to do whatever, but when it gets to the point where we need to get law enforcement involved, guess what? They can't, because we've allowed it. So code enforcement can issue notice of violation and citations and appear in front of the magistrate and, okay, we're gonna fine you, and they're just gonna ignore it because, you know, at the end of the day, it goes on the property or it goes on the tax roll, and they've gotta sell their house, so it's still gonna be there and they're still gonna be living there. We can't call Deputy Kip and say, hey, we need to evict those people because we allowed it to happen. So I think, you know, we need to think about that some more, before we move forward with that. I just think that, as you all know, I listen to our deputy, and listen to Bay County, there are police force, and I think of, issues out there that I don't see, it gets to the point where code enforcement is not gonna be able to do anything, nor is our law enforcement, because we've allowed that individual. It's just food for thought.
I'm a little confused about what we're allowing here, because we're allowing the RV, but we're not allowing them to live, sleep, or housekeep purposes on the stored residential premises. So we're not allowing them to do that. Just because the RV's sitting there.
But it'll be, that's a code enforcement issue.
It's a code enforcement.
Nothing law enforcement can do about it.
If we allow it on vacant properties is what I'm talking about.
What are we, we're
We don't,
allowing
allow the structure, allow the vehicle
The
there.
vehicle here.
And then if somebody starts living,
And
in it,
we've
then it's
had,
a code enforcement issue.
and I've talked to,
How do you make it involved?
well, we just don't allow it.
Give you a quick statistic, since 2021, when we started enforcing the RV ordinance again after Hurricane Michael, we've only had 148 cases of RVs in the front yard. And there are thousands of boats in the front yard, which makes it almost impossible to enforce that. But like I said, there's only been 148 cases since 2021 of RVs in the front yard.
Funny how you feel about the line issue.
We've had, city manager, I know of one that I've given, citizen called me, not given to the sheriff department, and she knows which street that's on. It took forever to get that RV off of that property. They were living on there, they had generators, they had, I mean, they were having parties on and on and on. And if we allow it on the vacant property, we can't call Deputy Kip and say, hey, come and help us.
Either way, I'm gonna do what y'all tell me to do.
Wow. You're using my statement of staff will follow direction. Say it right. Staff will follow direction.
Yeah.
One of the penalty in your law park, it's stripping your driveway or your backyard in a house or residence.
I have one more question if I could. Deputy,
Yes.
do you mind, so, can I reverse the role here? Let's say it's not a vacant lot and it's actually on property. We're allowing RVs on property. And they're living in it. You still can't do anything with it.
If if they're allowed, no, if the owner's allowing them to, anybody to live in there, there's nothing I can do about it, law for the law.
So no matter what we do, it's a code enforcement issue.
Yes.
I just had to, I'm trying to process and see what's good and what's not, what's fair, and in my mind, I'm trying to think, okay, well, if we allow it on the property, they're living on that property, I don't think we've had a lot of issues with that. I think, I know a few in the last 8 years.
One thing that does seem, if we allow people to park them in the front, it's gonna be a little more difficult for them to hide somebody living in it. If it's in the backyard, you can't really tell.
Right.
But even if somebody's staying in it, if they tell you they're just in there for the day cleaning or doing whatever, there's nothing you can do about getting them out of it. I mean,
Right.
whether there's, you don't have a right to search the camper. So, I mean, and can you tell them they can't run an extension cord out the camper, they can't hook a generator to it? I mean, those are things, I know most people, let's say most people will not cause a problem with them. But there's the few that do, that really cause an issue. And some people are just sorry, let's just be honest. And they're gonna allow their kinfolks to move in there, they're gonna allow their kids to stay in there. When they get evicted out of their place somewhere else, there's people that abuse whatever you allow them to do. And living in the city is different than living in the county, but it's, you don't own 10 acres here, you only own a small lot. And it does infringe on the other neighbors that live next to you's rights whenever you start having multiple people living on your property, throwing out trash, not cleaning up, and it's an ongoing issue. But all I'm saying, I know people should have a right to own a camper. I'm not saying they shouldn't. But what I'm saying is the broader you make the law, the more room there is for people to abuse it. And there's very little we can do to do any enforcement, once they start allowing those people to live on their property in an appropriate manner. I know you say you can't hook up electricity and all that, code enforcement can take care of it, they can only take care of what they can see.
Right.
So that's why I'm not trying to tell you what to do here, just making sure that you're aware that there's potential for problems the broader you make this ordinance.
The difference between you and code enforcement can do citations and can do it, but at the end of the day, they can't force them to do it.
But they can't
You
tell
can
whether
take them to
somebody's
court.
living in there or not either. I
Right.
mean,
You know what I'm saying, is that you can take them to court, she can't.
Long term, she can if she stays after.
Long term, yeah, but it could be
Not-
a year or two.
Yeah. We work good together. Code enforcement's
I know
great.
that, yeah.
But just be careful not to make it so hard that they can't do their job.
And I will go even more back with that. Once the property owner allows someone to move into a camper or a shed, they have to legally evict them to get them out. And that goes through a whole court process, it's expensive, but just keep that in mind too. Once they're in there, it's very, very difficult to get them out.
Right. Yeah. And the person would be finding would be the property owner.
Correct. Correct. So you're not doing any damage to the people who are squatting, basically.
How many cases did we have prior to the hurricane?
Didn't look that up.
Well, you have somebody also over there that, was involved at the time, so maybe Bill has, a rough idea.
I forgot everything I know about code enforcement.
That's a good cop out.
I can look that up, but, don't have it here.
If the property owner owns the adjacent property, they can fence it.
Yes,
They put it behind the fence. Is it legal?
I can't see it, and I don't know it's there.
What if you see the top?
Well, this ordinance would allow that.
Yeah, but if they
Well, like if they, still, if this property owner owns the adjoining property, they can still have it there. It just can't be in the front yard. If this isn't passed, it just can't be in the front yard.
But the reason I'm bringing that up is that after the hurricane, the insurance companies bought a lot of RVs and put them on their property. So I'm wondering, particularly these people that, were allowed after the hurricane to put it on their property.
No, this is RVs in front yards, it's not like replacing a house, living in an RV. This is actually
Yeah, but after the hurricane, we allowed them to put their RVs on the front yard, right there at the street.
Yes,
certain point.
yes,
that
yeah,
means
until
to a
twenty
certain point.
twenty-one, we started enforcing that, and then since twenty twenty-one, we've only.
I don't think we have any more RVs related to Hurricane Michael. All that's been cleaned up.
Yeah, everything.
All those RVs that had to do with Hurricane Michael were cleaned up after we said no more.
Well, the people that were given those RVs by the insurance company, whatever, did they move them off the property, like, and we've had those cases where we told them you have to move it off the property, and they've had to put it in off-site storage. And that's where a lot of those campers
A lot
are.
of people have had to do that.
And that's one of the reasons that, those however many few people want it in their front yard, because they don't wanna pay for storage anymore. Now, when I bought all my RVs and campers and all that business, I guess I knew the rules. Well, I didn't even think about it, because there was nothing gonna go on the front of the property. And if I didn't have room to store it on my property, not in the front yard,
Right.
then I didn't get it.
Well, and somebody mentioned earlier, we've had people, because of this, our ordinance, had people pour concrete slabs on the side of their house so they could be able to store their camper there. So there's a lot of people who have made, it's a great effort to obey the ordinance. So that's something you need to think about too. Now, for all of a sudden, we say, well, you wasted your money doing that, because now it's allowed in the front, so I don't know.
How do we handle the boats? Was after all this, we're going to do something with the boats. We either change our current ordinance
We do.
to allow the boats.
If we don't pass this, we do need to look at our boat ordinance, because like I said, there are so many boats in Callaway that we would need a couple more code enforcement officers to deal with them all, and probably, if you think there's people that are upset about this RV ordinance, there would be a whole bunch more that are upset because they can't be, it's a boating community. So I think we do need to, if we don't pass this, we definitely need to revisit the boats.
The boats are in the mini code, not in the ordinance. Cause I went looking for it, and I got educated as to where the issue of the boats were.
But like I said, I'm gonna do whatever.
So they're
I tell you to
illegal.
do.
Also, right now they are,
Yeah.
and they have been for years. It was hidden in the mini code. Cause I went looking for it, I couldn't find it. So, city clerk educated me.
We could be,
Well,
Pardon?
we could be.
as far as the attached property, like Mr. Carnahan has, we've allowed the fencing, we've changed our fencing ordinances to allow, and they could actually include that property and put that extra vehicle behind those fences, which would allow them to go to 8 feet now, so. So many things that are just distasteful about putting things in the front yard. I'm trying to keep my personal feelings out of, what basically the citizens want. But,
The triangle views won't allow a lot of people not to put them in the front yard. Cause the setback on that to create that view on a certain side.
if that person wants to sell their property, they're definitely gonna get their RVs and boats out of the front yard. But if their neighbor wants to sell the property, it's exactly, that's the exact situation. And we've had some situations on Bertha, where people have gotten estimates for getting new mortgages and that type of thing, and the people next to them have construction trailers or whatever at that, that point. And it actually shows up on the appraisal that they're done a percentage or amount of value because of what's next to them.
And we've had many citizens show in front of us on this RV issue when we start saying no more RVs, complaining about property value.
Right.
Many of them. I won't say 3-4 dozen, but I'd say at least 8 to 10, maybe a dozen of them show up, complain about their property value in RVs.
Well, the ones that we've had, at least while I've been on the commission, the ones we've had have basically been looking for a variance because they needed to put it on their side yard or something, and we allowed them a variance because they couldn't get it on the backyard. And actually, we haven't given the variance on that. We just clarified it where they could be on the side yard and fenced.
Well, I think, we're in an impasse right now, and I wouldn't mind tabling this and for us to sit and think about this another 2 weeks before we make a decision, so I'd like to table it and, let's, sit back and see if we get some more comments from citizens out there and, before we make a final decision, because personally, I'm in an impasse of what to do with the vacant lots.
We'll do some internal research.
Right. And that'll give us 2 more weeks to think about this.
And thank you for waiting for the discussion before we table it.
Well, it's good to discuss, we're in an impasse, and at this point, I think we need to table it. Which is legal, right?
Anybody table it?
Yeah.
Just put it back on the county website.
Right.
Advertise it.
We'll move on to, we'll close the public hearing. And we'll move on to agenda item number 2, election date changes.
First reading of ordinance number 1115, an ordinance of the city of Callaway, Florida, amending section 4.02 of the city's charter related to the conduct of municipal elections, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances as a conflict, providing for severability, scrivener's error, liberal interpretation, modifications, codification, effect on existing terms, and providing for an effective date.
I know this is something that we've talked about a couple of times. It was in the newsletter. I don't know, did y'all get much response? I had a couple people get in touch with me after I put out the newsletter. Yeah.
I have a couple too. I sent the city clerk.
Yes, I do have several. I have a folder that I was going to attach those into this agenda packet, and that folder did not get moved, so they'll for sure be in with the next one. The majority of what I received and what Commissioner Kelly received, they were in favor of it. I may have seen 1 or 2 that mentioned keeping it in April, but
The ones that I spoke to, I think I had about 7 people that said, move it to November.
Right.
I had 2 that said, I'd rather keep it in April. And then I had several that didn't really care. So.
They say respond.
Mhm.
They say respond.
Right.
So,
I think that's a no-brainer.
any discussion? Okay.
No?
Would anybody in the audience like to comment on moving the election dates from April to November? Mr. Shaner?
No, I'm saying if it's in like Kevin's circle, I don't care which way it is, but, I'm gonna be there to vote. I'd like to save a little money if we could, we can't, but one thing about the November election, you're so fed up with them darn commercials, you just wanna scream. I mean, it just, it puts you in a whole new frame of mind when you get to that. Just back commercials. I mean, it just, I don't mind getting a letter or 2 in the mail, supporting, somebody, but these back-to-back commercials, I mean, good grief, it just, I'll be there for either one, for either way, but them commercials sure bug me.
what I hated the phone calls.
Oh, yeah.
I think Mr. Shaner is that one, is that we don't have early voting now, we'll have early
That's
voting.
right, we'll
We
have
change
early
it.
voting.
And two is that there's no expense at all to the city. And we're gonna have 3 voting locations versus 1.
Plus, we probably can't afford a commercial.
Right. I can't afford it.
Yeah, we don't have.
That's what I was about to say, with the price of, stamps and everything else.
You have to be in town of the city or the beach to afford commercial.
We just not be able to campaign like we did before.
Go ahead, Ms. Custer.
I actually like.
I need you to, if you don't mind saying.
Karen Custer, 216 Landing Road Drive. Not everybody did, so. I mean, I really don't have an objection to moving to November. The one thing I remember, Mark Anderson, objected to, like, the beach moving their elections to November, because he said the ballots are so long in November that a lot of times people aren't even gonna vote for anybody in Callaway, because they're never gonna get that far down the ballot. So you'll have more people turn out, but you won't necessarily have more people voting in Callaway elections, so that's just something to keep in mind. It might help it, not help that, it'll make it worse, but you will save money, so.
If we go from 700 voters to 7,000 voters. So
But not in
you have-
Callaway though.
Yeah, in
Yes.
Callaway,
Yeah,
that's
Callaway.
what we're talking. And the new supervisor of elections is all for this, so.
Anybody else want to comment?
The only thing that happens with this new is that it hurts us.
Yeah.
So we can run a campaign now for 2,000, in the future it'll be about 15 to 16,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's just mailing.
Yeah. And I can't afford commercial.
Anybody else want to comment? Not seeing anybody.
Motion to approve ordinance number 115-election date changes.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? And is this just a first reading, so we'll be bringing this back for the second reading? And this is just a first reading? So we'll be bringing it back in 2 weeks if it passes tonight. So go ahead, city clerk.
Alright, Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Commissioner Griggs?
Yes.
Commissioner Pelletier?
Yes.
Commissioner Ayers?
Yes, ma'am.
And Mayor Henderson?
Yes. Okay, we will go on to item number 3, ordinance 1116, annexation 716 North Fox Avenue.
Ordinance number 1116, an ordinance annexing the Byron unincorporated area of Bay County, which is contiguous to the city of Callaway, Florida. Upon petition of the owner of said property containing approximately 8.47 acres and located at 760 North Fox Avenue, property ID 06-006-030-000, as more particularly described in the ordinance, redefining boundary lines of the city, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing that this ordinance shall take effect immediately upon passage.
Chief City Manager.
Mr. Fry.
This is Fox Glen, phase 2, the northern portion. You'll remember they tried to annex in a while back, and it was questionable whether that was gonna be legal or not. We went into an interlocal agreement with Bay County, passed by ordinance, and now it's a legal annexation. They're going to do more of the same, is what I'm being told. Mr. Scott Bogo is here tonight representing. The next 2 items will obviously be getting the future land use map and the zoning map in line for their project. This will be a PD, a plan development. The plan development has been submitted, but we're still in draft form. We'll be bringing that back at a later date.
Basically more of the same.
More of the same. Yes, sir.
Anybody have any question, comment, Mr. Bob?
And we rode out there today and took a look at it, and,
The first phase of this, was this apparently going into 2 phases. So the first phase of it, we didn't require, recreation area.
Yeah, they're already aware that that's gonna be a part of the second phase moving forward.
Okay, well, part of the second phase, or if they're gonna do this under a total PD, is that, percentage, is it gonna be involved with the first phase as well? Or are they just gonna set aside that particular property and comply to that only with the second phase?
Good question.
That's the reason I'm asking.
Yeah. I believe it's Mr. Bolo and the developer's intent to create an open space that would be adequate for the entire project. For Fox Glen phases 1 and 2. Because inevitably, it's gonna be used by everyone who lives there. They're not gonna just allow phase 2 residents to use it.
Yeah, can we get a commitment on that?
Whenever we accept that PD, that would be the time.
Right. But they discussed that at planning board meeting.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was discussed.
All the roads are cut in already, by the way, if you didn't know that, for phase 1, and all the cut-ins are ready to go. So I guess they're getting ready to put foundations down now, so, for phase 1.
Yeah, I've been keeping track of it out there, but,
I can answer that question if you want.
Would you like to?
I can. Hey, I'm Scott Bull, I'm the PE that submitted the plan on. We've got a 30-foot section that's green space, and it's gonna interconnect with a lot behind it. So there will be an interconnected green space between phase 1 and phase 2. I don't know the exact dimension of it, but it's approximately 30 by 200 is the size. And then with all the stormwater ponds, there's a significant amount of green space, and I'm sure that all the residents will be, taking their dogs there and that sort of thing.
well, the ponds are good for, what they call green space, but not for this particular, it can't be included in this particular, family-oriented space.
That is right, and Mr. Fry suggested something like wiffle ball, and then we had discussed last time a small splash pool or something like that, some kind of amenity to get the kids out there and, let them have a good time. It's not gonna be a pool, but something they can put their feet in. We'd be too afraid to put that out with little kids. The splash pump,
I'm glad to see a lot more movement down there because it's been, 4 years now, 5 years?
We were in construction for 18 months, but a lot of that was.
That's after the second, we approved the, well, we didn't have to approve that. Okay, all right, I'm good.
Anybody else have a question or comment? Would anybody in the audience like to comment on the annexation of this property? I'm not seeing anyone.
Motion to approve ordinance number 1116, annexation 760 North Fox Avenue, first reading.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? I'm just waiting to see if Commissioner Davis made it back. Okay, hang on.
Yeah, after Scott.
Well, we used to be able to carry a microphone.
Oh, here we go.
We had a commissioner do that one time. We had to clip on.
Bob was telling me about his after hearing, after we have one for Scott too.
Okay, Commissioner, we do have a motion and a second to approve this annexation. We were just waiting for you to get back to base, so, City Clerk.
Commissioner Grant,
Yes,
Commissioner Pelletier,
Yes.
Commissioner Ayers,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Davis,
Yes.
Mayor Harrison.
Yes. Okay, we're going on to item number 4. This is the small scale
number 1117, an ordinance amending the comprehensive plan of the city of Callaway, acting upon the application of Insight Land Development, FGI Inc., designating for high-density residential future land use a certain parcel of land lying within the city of Callaway, Florida, consisting of approximately 8.47 more or less acres. Said parcel is located at 760 North Fox Avenue, Callaway, Florida. Parcel ID at 06-006-030-000, as more particularly described in the body of the ordinance. Amending the city's future land use map for high-density residential designation for the parcel, repealing ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing that this ordinance shall take effect as provided by law.
City manager, do you have anything to say on this one?
Mr. Fry.
This is just getting the future land use map in line for their project. They do have a plan moving forward, but PD will spell out exactly what they're allowed to do, including density. That's one of the things they're gonna be asking for, is a little more dense than we would allow, approximately 4,000 square foot lots. The most dense we would allow is 5,000.
Anybody have any questions, Mr. Fry?
Won't be able to put a vote on RV on those properties.
Not without meeting the triangle vision requirements, yes, sir.
If you guys anything, did anybody in the audience want to comment on the small scale comp plan amendment for that whole property? Not seeing anybody. We just need a motion.
Motion to approve ordinance number 117, small scale comp plan amendment, 760 North Fox Avenue, parcel ID 06006-030-000, first reading.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion in a second. Is there any other discussion? Not seeing any. City clerk?
Commissioner Pelletier?
Yes.
Commissioner Ayers?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Commissioner Gray?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. Okay, we will go on to item number 5, ordinance number 1118, rezoning of 760 North Fox Avenue.
This is ordinance number 1118, an ordinance rezoning from Bay County R2 duplex manufactured housing to planned development, a certain parcel of land lying within the city of Callaway, Florida, consisting of approximately 8.47 acres more or less. Said parcel is located at 760 North Fox Avenue, Callaway, Florida. Parcel ID 06006-030-000. All is more particularly described in the body of the ordinance. Repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing that this ordinance should take effect immediately upon passage.
Okay. City manager?
Mr. Fry.
We'll be back soon with the plan development documents for approval.
Any questions for Mr. Fry about the rezoning? Do anybody in the audience want to comment on the rezoning of this property? Not seeing anybody, we just need a motion.
Motion to approve ordinance number 1118, rezoning of 760 North Fox Avenue.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. So, if there's no further discussion, city clerk?
Commissioner Ayers?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Commissioner Gray?
Yes.
Commissioner Pelletier?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. Okay, we will go on to item number 6. Ordinance number 1119, annexation 235 Hill Drive.
Okay, this first reading of ordinance number 1119, an ordinance annexing the following unincorporated area of Bay County, which is contiguous to the city of Callaway, Florida. Upon the petition of the owner of said property containing approximately 2.94 acres and located at 235 Hill Drive. Property ID 06109-000000, as more particularly described in the ordinance. Redefining the boundary lines of the city, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing that this ordinance shall take effect immediately upon passage.
City manager?
Mr. Fry.
And as the map shows, this is a parcel at the north end of Hill Drive off of Cherry Street. They're asking for annexation of the property within the city limits. Ms. Smallwood is here tonight representing the owner. If you have any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer them. I'm sure Ms. Smallwood is ready and willing
Well,
Did you have something?
yes. Question may be for you, or Ms. Smallwood, but, what is the present use on that property? This is county property now, they're willing to annex it in. What was the use of that property within the county?
The current use, if I may, I would like to let Ms. Smallwood answer that question.
Oh, okay.
I believe the current use is.
But we need you to come up to the,
My apologies. This matter came up before the planning board, and although the question wasn't addressed by Mr. Fry, I believe that the use that it is currently within the county is R2. That's my understanding. I could be wrong.
But that's, the current
Yeah,
land
that's my
use is
understanding.
Bay County residential, the current
Yes,
zoning is
residential.
R2. But I mean, it's classified as vacant, I don't know if that's your question, I mean, it's classified as vacant.
the R2 is a residential.
It is currently zoned Bay County R2.
Bay County R2.
Right, and it's a
How-
residential land use.
However, there was no resident on this, but there's a heck of a lot of equipment on there. It looks like they were using, if it was residential property, they were using it for some type of equipment storage.
And
Is
that's
that
why-
allowed under Bay County or?
No, that's precisely why we submitted the annexation application first, and we wanted to, because at the planning board, we actually addressed this, and I don't know that, everybody here has had the benefit of understanding the lay of the land. My client lives on the property that is, on Lewis Street. So Hill abuts to the back of the property they live on. And then the almost 3 acres, on Hill Drive, is where he currently stores his equipment. We don't want to rezone this commercial, because he doesn't do commerce there. You see what I mean? He stores equipment. Right now, he has a pole barn that is built out, and the goal is, kind of like Ms. Custer alluded, to the extent that something needs to be built there to in-house his equipment, then that would be the next application that would be made, and we would seek those permits and make sure that when it's annexed for the purpose that it's intended, which is to have all of his property within the city, obviously expand the footprint of the city for the city's benefit, but obviously be able to use that piece of property for its intended purpose, which is an adjacent storage to what would then be 4 acres of land that would be all owned by the same person.
Would all be, you potentially looking for it being residential?
Well, there's no intent to build there right now. I mean, he's a contractor, he pours concrete. I'm sure that, if that's something that he wanted to entertain, I don't know that he's excluded it. I think the intent in putting forth the application was to secure all of the property that they own within the city, and then seek to use that piece of property, with whatever safeguards and whatever, requirements that the city will put in place.
You said you wouldn't want it zoned commercial, what zoning would you request from the city?
It would be a zoning that would allow him to just house his equipment, build a warehouse on that footprint of three acres that would allow him to store it out of the rain, out of the weather. And it's mostly work trucks, and I know that there's some other equipment. And I mean, if you look to the west, I believe, there's commercial property there. To the north, you know, it's not too far from 22. And then on the east side, I believe.
There's some residential.
Yeah, there's some residential, but I think
Residential on
that's.
the east, I think it's commercial towards Tyndall Parkway,
Yes.
maybe some mixed use commercial towards 22.
Exactly. There's a little bit, it's sprinkled with a little bit of everything there. And that's precisely why we weren't presumptuous with the rezoning application. We want the property to come into the city, obviously benefit the city, we live in the But equally, avoid the cost, of having to give the benefit of the construction and the taxes on that building that eventually they wanna build with your blessing to store, his equipment.
Well, these owners have the property on Lois, which his property backs up to, well, Lois backs up to it.
However you wanna
Say it. But, are you saying you would want this property to be, you're thinking that you want this property to be part of that Lois property?
Well, I mean, whether it needs to be one address, I don't necessarily, I think that's more frosting than cake. I think that's more semantics than anything.
Well, Ms. Smallwood, the reason I'm bringing it up kind of this way is that, as an individual piece of property, we have nothing in Callaway that allows just storing equipment, pieces of equipment on a piece of property unless it is a commercial piece of property. Now, we do, don't wanna speak out of turn, so I can be corrected at any time, but, as part of residential property, and if you have a business, not a walk-in, not a drive-in, not a whatever, business within a residential property, you're allowed to store equipment and all that out of sight, behind fencing, and all that. So if that's the intent of what they're going to, we would have to address it at that time. But I wouldn't wanna bring in property into the city that could potentially run into, problems. They think, well, they're going to the city and they'll be able to put their equipment there, because all that would be approved in a different way.
I mean, to the extent that that is the issue that is of concern, it would make sense then to make it one contiguous lot so that they could do that.
Commissioner,
So you would expand it to a
I'd like to add
lot.
some things here. There's a letter that Ms. Smallwood sent to the county. As you all may not know, there's a case on this property right now, code violation on this property, that if we annex into Callaway, we inherit that case. In other words, our code enforcement is gonna have to start all over again, okay? Two is that in her letter to the county, basically, the third paragraph, it states in here that at some point, they're looking at mixed-use commercial. We all know that we've not allowed that in the city of Callaway.
Right.
Right? So, also, if you go back and look at the email that we got, the intent was to convert this property to commercial. Okay, and I wanna send mixed signal to the property owner that we've not allowed it. I would not vote for it. Two is that this case summary that's active right now, was gonna go to the magistrate. The county stopped it because of the letter she says she wanted to annex into Callaway. But at the end of the day, if we annex into Callaway, this here will have to start all over again. Our code enforcement officers are gonna have to start this case all over, because the property doesn't meet the requirements as it is now. So why do we wanna bring a piece of property knowing we already have code violations on it?
Well, the code violations, that's in the county. Why would they be why would we have to have a code violation?
Because it doesn't meet our codes, because it's on the property. Have you been down there to look at the property?
It would be,
Yeah.
if we annex this in without doing a corresponding comp plan amendment or
Right.
rezoning, it's gonna have the underlying land use and zoning, which is Bay County residential and R2.
Right.
The enforcement of that, it'll be, we probably have to work in conjunction with, Bay County has different opinions at different times as far as how they wanna enforce that, but if it becomes part of Callaway city limits, I think he's right, and I think really, we would be able to say, look, we have jurisdiction, but again, we'd be trying to enforce Bay County's land development regulation as opposed to Callaway's, because it's residential, or it's R2, so whatever Bay County allows in R2, that's what we would inherit, until they come back and make an application for a land use change and zoning change.
So would it come into us as an R2?
Yeah.
It would come, yeah, yes, because this, all it's being presented is a straight annexation.
Right.
Unlike the last one we just did, you saw, it's annexation, small settle count plan, and rezoning. If it's just annexation, it will come in as Bay County R2.
And our next question is gonna be, how do we enforce a zoning from the county?
And I've seen it, you can't kind of both ways, where, I mean, it happened out at the beach, and there was an issue, and Bay County said, well, this was our zoning, we'll take care of it, even though the beach was trying to enforce it. So.
Do you know what
that's two
R2
concerns.
says?
Not off the top of my head, I mean, well, the last one was R2, that was duplexes and manufactured housing. I'm sure there's more uses, I can give you the table from Bay County, but it's residential.
I will say that this has brought up discussion amongst staff concerning the annexation process. Our land development regs currently do not state that they have to request a zoning, and that's something that I have sent to Kevin that I think we need to have changed in our code.
It's not
Anything that comes
mandatory,
in,
which is common in a lot of cities don't make it mandatory, because again, there are certain circumstances where the property owner's like, well, I'm fine with Bay County, whatever. But they just want to be part of the city for whatever reason. But I think it's a good planning decision for the city to make them do a land use change or rezoning. But it's not mandatory. There's nothing illegal about it. It's not mandatory, but we can make it mandatory.
In this instance, could we request that even though it's not mandatory, could we say we would rather do the rezoning and the annexation all at the same time?
Well, I mean, I think we can't make it sort of a condition of our approval. On an annexation, this is a legislative decision, this is purely discretionary. So it's up to, it's up to you. So I don't think you need to make it, condition on anything, it's just purely discretionary legislative decision of this board, whether they're going to go forward with any voluntary annexation.
And bottom line, Commissioner, is that we'd have to start all over until they clean the property up. So why do we want to inherit a property that we already know has code violations on it?
Well,
And we already know by the email and what's in this letter here, that the intent is to go commercial.
well,
It is,
we
it
did
is
not
surrounded
already know that.
mixed use.
I knew it when I sat down today.
Yeah.
Here, that's when I saw it. Now,
What's
one
like
of
all
the
the
ways
parcels?
they could resolve this is actually turn that property into commercial at the county, and then bring it
County won't
on.
allow it.
Kevin,
I was just gonna-
those parcels that are adjoining those
All-
are on major roads.
Correct, I was just pointing
There's
out.
no
that-
access.
I think
the
we
only access
mentioned,
to
we had
that is
mentioned
on
commercial,
main.
and there's really not, it's, everything on 22 is Callaway mixed use, and everything on Tyndall is Callaway mixed use. That's in Callaway, and obviously this parcel, and there's a little parcel that sticks out next to it, which is still Bay County residential. And then obviously where he lives and the two properties next to that are low density residential Callaway. The only ones that are still residential are to the east of Bay County. Then you go north of that and you get a little bit of commercial over there, but everything immediately adjacent to it on Highway 22 and Tyndall side are mixed use in Callaway. So, yeah, I mean, I think to try to make that commercial, it look, from a planning perspective, you've got mixed use, residential, low density residential. To throw commercial right in the middle of it wouldn't probably be what the planning board would want to do, or what you guys would want to do. It's just not consistent with it's not consistent with existing surrounding uses. Mixed use would be. I don't know if
It's not consistent
equipment
with
would.
what we've done in the past.
No, I mean, mixed use would be consistent with all the surrounding area. I don't know if our mixed use allows what they want to do.
And to answer your question, if the county would allow it, it wouldn't have this.
I think that's a little bit presumptuous, Mr. Pelletier.
Well, it's still a case that's open on violation of the property being used. So I can, you can kind of word it the way you want to word it, is that, in my mind, is that your letter to the county specifically says the intent at the end is to convert it to commercial, which I know, I won't vote for it, and I don't know anybody else up here that will. I don't know, I don't wanna speak for anybody else, but in the past we haven't, and, unless we wanna make an exception here, that's fine. But in my mind, I've already talked to the folks concerned at the county on this, and we would inherit all this, so our code enforcement officer would have to start all over again unless they clean the property up. Or they come forward and say, well, we wanna convert this to commercial. So I'm totally against this, so.
So the property on Highline Drive, number 230, can you look at that real quick? And is that commercial?
Where's Highline?
Highline's on
To the west
Oh,
of
to-
the parcel.
No, there's nothing commercial around it.
That's all.
Until you get to,
Those are all homes. That's a huge home.
it's all mixed use. It's all mixed use. There's a little bit,
And when you say mixed use, that means both commercial and?
No.
you've got commercial, you've got residential, you've got mixed use. It's its own land use, own zone.
So if we were to annex this, can we annex with caveats, like they have to clean up the code violations?
No, we have to start all over again on the code violation. Our code enforcement officer would have to start this entire case all over again.
So really, I haven't had time to go through this, obviously, but if they have this, and basically the solution to all this would be for them to go commercial, which they can on that particular property within the county. And then ask for annexation into us as a commercial property.
Annexation, voluntary annexation, it's discretionary, you don't have, it's up to this board. But if they did that, and they came and petitioned for annexation, and we didn't do it, that there wasn't a land use change application, you'd be annexing a property that's Bay County commercial.
In Bay County commercial. We're not opposed to commercial property.
I don't know whether you are or not, you might be if it's surrounded by residential and mixed use. Yeah, I'm not gonna speak for your planning board, but that's what they look at, they're look at the surrounding, what's it surrounded by, what's that area, what's the nature of that area, if you've got a bunch of residential there, and you've got, the mixed use is used for residential. Planning board might look at it and say, I don't think we want 2.5 acres of commercial right in the middle of that.
Actually, if we approve this property to come into Callaway, we actually have an enclave there with a trailer and.
That one immediately to the west.
To the west, right.
But we allowed, with that interlocal agreement with Bay County, that's
Right.
not prohibited anymore because of that agreement.
So basically what we're saying is, until this is cleared up, however it's cleared up, this is cleared up, we don't want the annexation.
I don't wanna go for it.
Well,
I don't wanna put our code enforcement people back to work starting this entire case. I mean, it's been going on, for quite a few months, and of course, magistrate, stopped working it because of the letter that Ms. Smallwood sent to the county on
If I
that
may,
annexation.
We are here to avoid any problems for the city, that's why we are here, to address any concerns that you may have. So to intimate that my client is not willing to address the concerns upon annexation, or to, as Mr. Cook pointed out, to do it in a twofer versus doing it the way that it is presented right now, they wouldn't be going through the hassle of hiring me to do it. See what I mean? So, we're here to precisely address the concerns and to put forth an application that addresses not only commissioners' concerns, but also any concerns of residents. It's my understanding that the folks that live around my clients are very much on board with the annexation. They've lived there for some time. They've never had any problems. So, I mean, I don't want to give the impression, as Mr. Pelletier has seemed to do, that this is somehow trying to obfuscate the regulations of the county. I spoke to the county, I know the magistrate of the county, and there are professional courtesies that are given. So I said he's being presumptuous, because he is. And we're here to avoid everything that he is projecting as doom and gloom, as though my clients are trying to avoid.
Ma'am,
being
this
good
case
neighbors.
is, started in April of 2000, was 4/2/2024, so it's a year old. So what am I supposed to presume, since the case is a year old, they haven't cleaned it in a year, what said they're gonna clean it now?
You have things in the city that have been sitting for years that haven't been addressed. So, as I said, without knowing the record before the county, I find it presumptuous. But I'm here to address any other questions you have.
Well, they bought this property from the Landrys.
Yes.
The property on, Lois and the Hill Drive property. And that was what, 4 years ago, 5 years ago?
2019, shortly after the hurricane.
Right. And you've gotten involved with the county case here, because apparently you sent this letter out and all that business. What can you do to resolve that? Because that, in our view, that needs to be resolved before we get anywhere near this situation.
And if the resolution is to seek the rezoning that you just described, that's why we're here. My client wants to comply with whatever it is that the city has a concern with. Hence the reason we didn't put the cart before the horse by presuming what the zoning would be, the change that would be acceptable. But what I'm hearing from Mr. Pelletier is that the city prefers that the county make that change. And then you seek annexation once it is zoned commercial. Then I guess
that clears it up.
I didn't say that, that was Commissioner.
That's what I suggest.
But that's my point. That's what we're here to learn. What order do you wanna do this in?
What Commissioner Pelletier was saying is, if the county did that and it's zoned commercial, it's still an option whether we wanna bring that commercial property in, so it's still a choice from up here.
And because it is a discretion, I don't want to encourage my client to spend a lot of money without knowing what it is that they are seeking.
I would just add that from staff's point of view, we have our code of ordinances. This is a very rare situation where an annexation has been requested without a zoning request. If they come in and we start enforcing the zoning from the county, that is not something we wanna do. We do not wanna interpret another thing. That's why staff has requested to, Mr. Elbows here, that we change our LDR so that if you are gonna annex in, that you also request a zoning with it. Because right now that request is not there, and that's putting us in a position where we get into interpretation of somebody else's zoning regulations. So that's something that staff will be recommended in the future, as soon as Mr. Elbows gets that ready, that all annexations will have to include a zoning designation that fits our zoning needs, so that we do not have to get into an interpretation.
Well, the current situation is that as long as this is out there, well, just speaking for this commissioner, it's not gonna be approved alternative that I see is that it's not gonna come in the way the property's being used now. So, but if they wanna have equipment and that kind of thing, wanna be commercial, then resolve this issue by being in the county commercial. And,
Commissioner, are you listening to what you're saying? Have we allowed that anywhere? I've been on this board now going on 9 years. And Mayor will tell you the same. We've not allowed any of that when we're moving in and driving into residential property. And all of a sudden we've not allowed it. So we'd be establishing a new precedent on commercial. Just because the county wants to accept it. If the county wants to accept it, you wouldn't have these folk out in my mind, okay? She could say I'm presuming, but it's in writing what they're planning on doing. It's in her letter. And it's in the email that she sent us. Okay, in my mind, I don't wanna presume anything, but in my mind, she's trying to backdoor the system versus applying the way everybody else has applied and not have to pay for that fee, okay? That's just my presumption, okay? That's the way I'm looking at it. But my presumption of it going to commercial is in writing in that letter that I gave you all. It's there. She wrote the letter, not me, okay? So I'm not presuming anything, okay? And in my mind, I don't care if the county, annexes it commercial. I personally, I wanna tell her, I would not vote for it. Because, I've driven up there, I think everybody has. And we all do, we all do our homework when it comes in front of us. But I wouldn't vote for it either way.
So would they come in with a zoning recommendation for not commercial residential, a certain, we would accept it?
They have to clean the property up.
Right, but I mean, if you came in and says, okay, this is.
I wanna build on it?
It's gonna be
Yeah.
residential.
Yeah, that's fine.
And we wanna annex it, but that means you'll have to kinda anticipate that we're gonna change the LDR.
Well, I wanna address that last comment. You do have a commercial piece of property surrounded by residences, right on 730 Highline, which is the same road that connects to my client. So,
My comments,
That's-
ma'am,
that's
doesn't have
not-
to do that,
that's
what
not
your
actually
intent
correct.
is. That's all I'm commenting. You're saying I'm presuming anything.
730 Highline
Yeah, so,
is commercial, surrounded, it abuts right to a pool where kids swim. So to say that it doesn't exist in the city is incorrect. And because it does exist in the city, that's precisely why we're here to see what needs to be done to get it there.
may exist, but we've not allowed it in the last 9 years.
Anyone else?
No.
we're on the side over here.
Well, you really need to,
Share.
you need to share, since this is a, public
Well,
meeting.
she was bringing up Highland Drive, and the right to Highland Drive is, there,
It's a steel worker, needs to represent him as well.
goes into residential, and actually the property to the west on 230 over there is, commercial.
But the access is to Tindall Parkway.
All right. The access is to Tindall Parkway, not residential. It's a whole different ballgame.
I thought you said it was commercial.
It's all, I was looking at the land use, and it's all mixed use, which we don't have anymore.
Right.
So, and that's the land use is all mixed use, which is kind of gone obsolete.
I wanna imagine.
But the actual zoning is just commercial one.
Way back when, it probably allowed that to be commercial because the access point is on Tindall Parkway, not.
Yeah, that's the old Tindall Parkway building.
Yeah.
That access, yeah, it's vacant. That's,
The old health department.
behind sign. Their access is on Tindall.
Yeah.
Not driving to commercial, residential.
Yeah, that was also.
So immediately north is residential multifamily, and immediately south is R6. So,
Do we have anything else up here before I open it up to the the audience? Anybody in the audience want to speak on this? Yes, sir?
Don Henning, 431 Henning Path. I'm on the planning board, but we didn't get that information.
You didn't do your homework.
Well, they didn't give it to us. I would vote no for it, because,
I had to go look for it.
well, they should have brought that up. She wrote, I didn't know she wrote the letter until I got in the minutes there.
Well, that's why I'm a
Online.
commissioner, you're on the planning board, because you know, when something comes in front of me, I start looking.
Well, if we voted down, she could have brought it up here anyhow, but I think I would have voted it down if I knew all the information on them, well, I didn't have that information.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'll say it. Lisa Langston, 6031 Main Street. I grew up in that neighborhood, and there's houses, I mean, it's all residential, coming down Hill Drive where the one entrance is. It's, you know, got some vacant land there, but it's residential, and the roads are, you know, it's an old neighborhood. It's the same reason why y'all didn't approve a 31 apartment complex on there, because the roads aren't really wide and stuff, and I don't really think that the residents really want commercial there, because I know you don't want it in your neighborhood, because I know that you have voted against somebody that wanted to put a commercial business in yours. And I really don't think that the people on Hill Drive and Anita Drive, because the only roads are residential roads going up to Tyndall Parkway or Cherry Street, and it's just, they're all houses, so.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dennis Florence, 179 Anita. We live on the corner of Anita and Lois. And last time we were here, we were talking about the proposed apartment complex that was going to go into Lois. And again, the road situation was of a concern, the traffic. The people who own this property, they want to annex it. Great people, very friendly. But we're concerned with, if we were to go commercial, of what are the future owners going to do with that property? And what will become of the neighborhood? So we're concerned with the roads, the traffic, and what can be in the future, past the present owner. But thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
I just want to follow up that they're absolutely right. On Lois, they did come in, this is what, about 3 or 4 years ago, came in with a high density, and we turned that down because we wanted the residential properties right there. So even though there's commercial on the west side of all that and all that, but it was, we turned that down. So
The big difference because of the access point.
yeah.
You're not accessing the commercial property on the residential side. And that's why that was done.
I think we're giving them an out here too. If they want to annex in, they annex in as residential, we're good to go. But if they don't want to do
They can't
that.
use it for the purpose that they want to use it.
Correct.
But it's catch-22.
Yes,
So
sir.
with Bay County, they can't use it the way it is now.
Right.
And if they come in the way it is now, we want to prove it.
And I wouldn't want to vote to annex in because of the code violations. That needs to be cleaned up first. And then we can talk about it.
That would,
Not mine.
that would prepare them to be residential.
Would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 119, annexation 235 Hill Drive, parcel ID 06109-000-000, first reading.
Second.
Okay, so the yes vote approves the annexation, and no vote is against the annexation, just so everybody's clear. It's not a negative.
We finally understand all that.
So, is
We
there
may not be.
any other comment before we vote? No?
Commissioner Davis?
No.
Commissioner Griggs?
No.
Commissioner Pelletier?
No.
Commissioner Ayers?
No.
Mayor Henderson?
just bring this up, and I did attach the old ordinance and such, so we could look at it. But I kinda wanted to get a feel where everybody was at on this, whether I'm wasting my time even bringing it up, or are you guys, you think we can address this again and maybe approve it? And if we can, what changes do we need to make? And if you'd like, table it for another, meeting, so you had more time to review this and come up with any suggestions you may have.
This is a discussion.
And it is just a discussion.
So you don't have to.
You don't have to take the time.
There's nothing, no
I
decision,
don't have
so
to
you
waste
should
your
have.
time either.
Yeah, so we can just, anybody have any comment? Anybody want to discuss?
I'd like to know what's prompted it. Have you had some complaints, or is it
Well,
still
it's the
South
same.
Kimbrel?
It's South Kimbrel, and the other speed bumps we have in the city are illegal. We should replace those with legal speed humps. So,
My opinion hasn't changed on this.
Anybody else?
Well, I'll start out by saying my opinion hasn't changed, but I'm trying to understand really why it's coming back. If it's just the Kimbrel situation, you know, or do we have, is it something that we wanna look at speed bumps, you know, and, calming devices, all around the city? I mean, what is difference about Kimbrel as opposed to any other road that we may have?
that's easy. Kimbrel, they went through all the hoops and got this approved. And you guys approved their speed humps. You put illegal speed bumps down, remove the speed bumps, and never replace them. Even if we don't have this ordinance, they still went through everything, and I think we're obligated to put speed humps there, because they did do everything we required.
I think,
That's my opinion.
Well, I made the motion, I think, and rescinded the approval on the calming devices. We did leave the stop sign in Kimbrel, but we rescinded the approval that we made on that. And of course, that was controversial.
On behalf of law enforcement and emergency vehicles.
Yeah, but we know that they can go over those speed humps without a problem versus speed bumps, because they go over them all the time in the county, and they don't have a problem with them. We already discussed that. But, see, I get mixed signals from you two gentlemen on the end. One day you say yep, and then you say no, so.
I'm a solid no.
If three of us are gonna say, yeah, we'll at least address it, and go ahead and figure out the areas that we need to fix, then it would be a yes.
I'm a solid no too, so you got two no's.
Give me a minute.
Nothing's changed, just attached the, same billboard they can.
No, I just wanted to bring out something on this, that, one of the things that, we did when we rescinded that, at least on Kimbrel, but one of the things that we all agreed on, we approved the additional officer, not,
Yeah, but that officer can't stay on Kimbrel 24/7, and they're having issues with speeding again. An officer, when they get out there, she has no place to hide, so they see her, they obey the law, and then when she's gone, they go blasting down the road through the stop signs and everything else.
I happen to know for a fact that she's been down here with an unmarked car. She's got stats of what she's done down here.
You know as well as I do, I can spot an unmarked car from a half a mile away. I mean, it's,
well, it sounds like if they're speeding and, then going through the stop sign, probably at the same speed that they're speeding.
yeah.
And all that business, if I was her, I'd be, or an officer, I'd be on that road that tees into that stop sign, because, you know, they they won't spot her until, till beyond
Already
that.
gone.
Right.
But if we want her sitting here 24/7, that's only one street in all of Callaway.
You know,
She has the whole city to work with.
she's doing pretty good, because very honestly, last year, 2,075 citations.
Yeah, I'm not saying she's not doing good, I'm just saying she can't be everywhere at once, and these calming devices help.
And we can't put speed on everywhere.
Yeah.
No, and because we have had a procedure that's pretty restrictive, and because it's restrictive, and they went through all the hoops to get this approved, I think we should at least put them on camera. And if nothing else, maybe let's see how they work on camera, maybe once, and let's see how it happens, does it help? And if it doesn't help, then at least we tried.
I've had a lot of discussions, with Deputy Martin in relationship to South Campbell. And she's got reports that she can bring to us, but she's spent numerous of hours out here with marked and unmarked art. And unfortunately, I have the same problem in Shadow Bay. She has the same problem in her neighborhood. He has the same, we all have problems, all of us in this room, with speeders,
And if you put speed bumps on one road, it just pushes the speeders to the next road, so it doesn't really solve it.
That's such a backward comment. It's about the same one we made today.
I can tell you, when she works that area, it works tremendous.
That does, when she's
Now,
sitting there,
now,
you see her.
speeding ticket, $250, $300.
Oh, yeah. Or if you just put a machine there that gives you your speed, that makes a lot of people slow down.
I think Deputy McKenzie's been working that.
Well, I just want to kind of get where you guys were at. And
I think you probably got it for later.
Try again next year.
Okay, I'm gonna, just before election time, I promise.
Chris Rocket Marshall's.
If we're gonna slow down all the speeders with a calming device, I'll go ahead and ask it, set Eddie up for this. How many roads do we have in Callaway?
We have two of them that have speed bumps on them.
But I mean, if we're gonna try to slow down the speeders on anyone, my street, or, your street, anybody's street.
If you pass all the different hoops that are in this ordinance, and not many people can. And Kimbrell is just one of those streets that absolutely can. But Forsyth Drive, it can. And maybe your street can't either because it doesn't have enough traffic on it. But it's got, the rules has a slot limit. Traffic has to be in that limit. If it's outside to too much traffic, you can't have a speed limit. If you have too little, like our streets would, you don't qualify. But that street actually qualifies.
Well, based on what I've seen, the water department is doing their part of slowing everything down because in almost every street, and certainly in your neighborhood.
Yeah, well, we got a dog leg next to my house, so they either slow down or they go through another house.
Yeah. We got enough barricades out there,
Yeah.
water leaks,
Yeah.
all over the city, what I was referring to.
Okay,
All right,
ready to go on.
Mayor, it's yours.
Okay, we'll go on to number 8 then, garbage hauling. Permit limits, city manager.
Every 3 years, the companies who haul garbage for our citizens must renew their permits. And so, of course, it's the sole discretion on whether or not the best interest of the city has the permit be granted. So we have the, how many haulers? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we have all 5 haulers are just re-upping their permit.
I have a couple of questions. Number 1, I know back when we looked at combining everything and we talked about, that would cut down on the number of trucks on the road because they do such damage to our roads. Is 5% charge sufficient? Do we need to up that 5%, or is that sufficient to help cover some of the costs of working on these roads that they're doing damage to?
Do not have enough information to
to also remind the mayor that 5% comes out of our citizens' pockets. It's not gonna come out of their pockets.
It comes out of their gross receipts.
Which comes out of the citizens' pockets.
So you think they're gonna raise the price? If we
Yes,
raise
ma'am.
it? Okay, well, my other question is, this gives us the right to go in and audit their records. Do we ever audit their records to make sure that they are paying us properly?
No.
Should we maybe consider doing that at some point?
Mr. Obos?
I mean, the language is in there that gives us the
I mean, are
right.
they paying us a Princess? I mean,
Yes.
Yeah. The mayor's got-
you can look at it, it's been pretty consistent.
I think
You
the
know how
mayor's
many
got an
customers
excellent
are.
question, and I have the same question.
It's probably not that big.
Who is in charge
I mean,
of
I know
our
for-
trash haulers in the city to monitor all the different things we have in here? Do we have a person assigned?
No.
Okay.
They're individual
Let's see,
contractors.
we're supposed to inspect them, we're supposed to inspect their equipment, they're supposed to provide us a list of equipment.
All right, well, will I have a personnel request for additional personnel at the next meeting? Inspect the garbage. None of us, Mr. Fry, you're gonna be in charge of personnel.
If we say all this stuff, we should do something.
Yes, ma'am. If,
I mean,
if it's in
we
here,
can- we
why
can-
don't we have a person assigned to? For one thing, you have a requirement for $250,000 insurance, do we verify that?
Yes, I do have copies of their
Thank you, ma'am.
insurance.
Statement of financial condition, do we have those?
I believe so, I have to look into.
They do meet all the requirements.
Yeah, they all met all of their requirements on their checklist.
Are we inspecting their equipment and do we inspect their operation? Do we have an idea of what we're inspecting? Also, how often do we do that? Is that a once annual thing?
We do not inspect, we don't go on their premises, we don't check their trucks. We can always, if you
This
like,
says
I can
that-
request, do it now.
This says.
It's a requirement on contract.
Well, it gives us the right to, it doesn't necessarily say we have to. It just gives us the
I
right.
think we've got, I've seen the garbage trucks go flying by my house all the time, and they're very nice. But it is in here, and that's why I'm asking that. And do we have a list of their equipment that they
Yes.
use? That's also in there.
Yes, we do have lists of their equipment.
There you go.
And since we have that, who inspects it?
We don't, we have the right to inspect, but we do not.
So that's
If we,
my question.
if we, if we wanna go over and look at their trucks, I mean, I'm sure they'll let us look at everything.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're gonna be looking for, just, do I look at it, that looks junky, I
And
don't
it
like it.
sounds like you need to put together a checklist on what you need to look for.
Yeah, absolutely.
We look at our trucks.
Unless there's 3 or more commissioners here that tell me to do that, I am not going to to inspect their equipment.
That's kind of a bad attitude.
No, it's not, it's personnel and an issue of
In here,
moving
it
forward.
says you're gonna do it.
Do it now.
In this contract, it says you do it.
It gives me the right to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, that says you'll do it. I mean, because you have the
Well, that's why I'm
responsibility to
sitting right
keep
here
our
and I'm telling you,
city safe.
if this commission tells me to form a task force of people and go to
You
these
don't have to
places and
form
do
a
it.
task force, you assign someone to do it, and you got 3 years to do it. And you got 5 different organizations you look at to show up and take.
Would this commission like for me to go and inspect the haulers truck? I mean, I think we could request a financial statement from them to see how much they're collecting and compare that to what we got coming in, we can do that. I mean, I think that's easy, we can say, hey, we would like to see how much revenue you collected to make sure we verify what we're getting. I can't imagine that they're not using some sort of an automated system to where everything's tracked in their books.
Well, you don't know, you're just speculating.
I'm presuming.
Yes, I know.
I'm presuming, but I do know.
I didn't ask for
1,
speculation.
2, 3. I know all 5 of these coming in, there ain't nobody sitting around with a pen and a paper on a piece of paper. They've all got their systems in place, and if y'all would like me to request, hey, I'd like to know how much we collected, and give me the things I can, I do that in the New York Minute.
Yeah.
Well, good. Mr. Schultz?
They do submit documentation with the payment that shows what they collected when they
dated checks.
There you are.
Okay.
Done.
You want me to audit their individual books?
No, I want you to inspect their trucks, if you say you're going to do it.
Okay.
If, I see a truck, a garbage truck going down the road leaking oil or damaging our, with a flat tire or something, damaging our roads, then I'm gonna call Eddie
Let's take it
and
out.
we'll take care of that.
Let's take it out if we're not gonna do it.
Pardon?
If we're not going to inspect these trucks, then why do we have it in here?
It says for them to inspect.
Take it out of the contract.
So what?
Inspector approved. They have to be DOT
And
certified.
just so that everybody's aware, I do receive,
Do they submit those to you? That's all I'm asking. If they actually do that, then submit it to the city so that can be their inspection.
We have an insurance policy with the city.
The insurance doesn't inspect trucks.
No, but I will say this, that I get calls all the time concerning the garbage haulers. And if not from y'all, I do get it from residents, and we do follow up on everything. We've had everything from reckless driving,
Yep.
and we've reported it, and all of these trash trucks, they are monitored heavily. Generally, they have 4 or 5 cameras all the way around the outside of them. We've had instances of them driving you down streets, and we were able to confirm, turn all that in, and corrective action was taken. But
That's nice.
I have not yet went down and inspected their trucks, no.
I do have one comment on complaints, Waste Pro, they leave their garbage cans in the street instead of sidewalk when they pick it up. So they should be putting it on the sidewalk, not leaving it on the street.
And I can definitely shoot an email over.
I've got quite a few.
Actually, I talked to their people, I have their direct numbers.
Yeah.
I didn't see that, Bob. Where is that?
Well, it's not in the contract, it's just that common courtesy, you're not gonna leave it in the streets, you're gonna put it back on the sidewalk.
See, most of those trucks have that pickup.
Yeah, but
It doesn't extend it
Waste
to the
Pro,
sidewalk.
depending on who's coming through, they don't. And they do it lying in.
Yeah, the guys.
Hey, we can just send out a little
They don't-
reminder
they
to
don't
all
put it
and
back
say,
on the sidewalk.
we'll just send a reminder out to all of them, this is an issue, please make sure you're
Just put it back on the
Be more
sidewalk, that's all.
hesitant.
Or the right of way, not,
Put it back on the
right of way, not in other roads.
Well, put it off the street,
Right, thank you.
because it's all right away.
Yeah, put it in the right of
I think on the inspection of vehicles, we've all seen stuff and we've all reported it. Leave it in the contract kind of gives us the,
Gives the right to.
right to say, hey, this truck is leaking oil, or this, it's falling apart, or whatever, versus, I don't know, I wouldn't, you'd have to have really, the only person that could do this inspection would be our mechanics down in public works.
And you got 3 years to do it. I mean, if you could do it once every 3 years, 5 units. I mean,
Florida Highway Patrol.
Pardon?
Florida Highway Patrol.
Yeah. They see it, they'll give citations, yeah. If they see it. Or Bay County, Sheriff.
Any more comment on the village hall permit?
Nope.
Anybody in the audience wants to comment on the village hall agreement renewals? Yes, sir.
So if we are going to wanna increase what they have to pay based on damage to the roads, I mean, I don't know how much that garbage truck weighs, but how much does the haul truck that drives around weigh?
I don't know.
Well, we're not gonna.
We're not gonna
we're not
increase it.
gonna-
That's what I'm saying, but I understand, just in case somebody brings it up again, just 'cause, obviously right now, there's discussion about it, but. If we increase it, that means you and I. Yeah, but I just wanted that to be in the mind, haul truck, it's heavy too.
Anybody else? I don't see anybody, so would somebody like to make a motion?
Motion to approve garbage hauler permit renewals as stated.
Second.
You've got a motion and a second, is there any more amendment for Tech Protect Public Assistance changeover.
At the March 11th, 2025 commission meeting, change order was approved, and this is just reflecting it in the budget. That's all.
Anybody have any comment or question? Anybody in the audience want to comment? Seeing anybody?
Motion to approve budget amendment, Tetra Tech public assistance change order. Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. And we'll go on to item number 10, development order application, construction of coffee, beverage, and pastry shop at 271 North Center Park.
Mr. Pratt?
It's gonna be the coffee shop, The Human Being at 271 North Center Parkway. As you'll recall, they got a variance so that they could do a drive-through only, and that was approved. They came back real quick, North Star Engineering, with the, plans. Not a real big property. Stormwater works, they have cross-parcel access, which is required. Landscaping, it all meets our land development regulations. There are two gentlemen in the audience over here from North Star Engineering that myself and them will answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? Go ahead.
We gave approval for the drive-through, which, we needed to do that, as a variance approval on that. But their structure is also allowing for walk-in and parking. So actually, they really didn't need that variance because that, once you see the design of the property, when they're allowing a walk-in as well as a drive-through, because that ordinance that that variance that we approved was to cover the situation like we were with coastal banks and that kind of thing, where you're just setting up but this company is got walk-in, sit down, and drive-through. So they really didn't need that variance, did they?
Sitting down outside.
Was that overlay?
Inside the seat.
It is in the overlay.
Was that a change to the overlay limit?
Right, the overlay is what restricted the drive-through only. And you're right, they do have just a tiny bit of walk-in. It's really walk-up, not walk-in.
Yeah,
walk
So, it was my opinion that this met the intent of the ordinance, that it is a drive-through only. So, I required them to get a variance.
In other words, Bill was covering his rear.
Yes, sir. Very good at doing that.
Now, do have one question concerning the,
Dessert? I couldn't resist, I'm sorry.
Toward the back of the property, they have a tail in there that's going up toward the property that's on the, where the service station and Goodwill, old Goodwill and all that, little service station prior to Goodwill. And, are they planning to do something there? Why did they put that tail in there?
It's cross-parcel access. It's required by the overlay.
Okay.
So that when whoever builds in that corner, you'll be able to go from one parcel to the other without getting onto the parkway.
Okay, so they're doing that on the west side, normally would be doing it on the east side, the front.
It's either or.
Either
As
or.
long as you have cross-parcel access. So it made more sense in the back for this occasion.
Okay.
And I agree completely with it.
Yeah, and I agree with that. If that's where that's going, okay.
Anybody in the audience want to comment on the development order for the coffee shop? Seeing anybody? Someone like to make a motion?
Motion to approve the development order, application, construction, coffee, brew, beverage, and pastry shop at 271 North Kendall Parkway, Callaway, Florida.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries, and moving on to our add-on item, number 11. War Park Community Service, change order number 2, it should be community center, change order number 2.
I threw this together today, and
Yeah.
I apologize for bringing this so quick. A lot of it has to do with the fact that how quick they're actually getting done with stuff out there. We can't wait 2 weeks to get this, stuff going, so. Well, we've identified some additional issues with the building, and we just wanna go ahead and get this presented to y'all so we can have a complete and actually a very good, project. We're requesting an increase in the budget of $10,800, and that's gonna include new soffit. The soffit that's out there is kind of degraded, and also there's about 5 different styles. So we wanna go ahead and redo that. We've had to do some updated electrical work inside where we moved the panel so that it'll pass inspection. We have some concrete sections over there that have been just mismatched, and just to fill in, we feel like we need to go ahead while they're doing the concrete on the entrance to the building, that they can go ahead and we can clear that up to get a good solid track that's gonna go all the way around the complex. We're extending the metal porch that's facing the water. Right now, it's a very partial porch that just is gonna cover up the double doors. We wanna go ahead and extend this porch. We'll be able to leave what's there and extend onto it and go all the way to the edges of the concrete. That's gonna actually create more usable area for the center itself. They went ahead and put additional, outlets on the building so we could increase the lighting. So we're requesting to go ahead and purchase those lights, and so that they can have those installed. And also, on the north side of the building, we do have drainage issues there. Most of it has to do with runoff, and so, they're gonna go ahead and add gutter to that, and then we'll connect that into our drainage system so that we can prevent pooling on that edge. There's just not a lot of room to build up the ground to keep the water from pooling there. We have an existing drainage system there that'll be able to cover everything, but it just can't cover the normal drainage plus what's run off the building. So by putting the gutters in, we'll do that. So this is a change order number 2. We hope we presume this is gonna be the last one, correct?
I'll be done before y'all have time to do another one.
That's right. Exactly. So, it's for $10,800. I would like to add also that we are currently, $46,142 under budget. And so with this change order, we'll still be under budget, $35,342 on the whole project.
Good. Anybody have any questions?
I hope we raise the rent.
We are. Mr. Laguerre has all of that, in order, and we'll be bringing that
Good.
here before y'all pretty soon, so
Looks
we
good
can get
already.
that in order.
I think it needs to be done. If you're gonna do a professional job, we need to touch up all those areas. Let's not do it half, and then a year from now, say, well, we should have.
Exactly.
Let's do it now.
We went by it today, and it looks great. We toured the inside, all the tile is down, the bathrooms are, they're not cut, they're cut in, but, there's no fixtures yet, but everything's looking really good, and they have the electrical all set up to go. So,
What's the situation with the ceiling?
Okay, ceiling, there's 3 ceilings in the place when we started. We pulled them all out. The prior change order was for insulation. When we pulled the ceilings down, there was insulation in the attic here and there occasionally. It wasn't consistent, so it made more sense to go ahead and pull all the ceilings out of the way. We spray foamed the whole roof deck. And that was done almost immediately. That was change order number 1 that was submitted. I wasn't here for that meeting, I apologize. The ceiling has all been pulled out. There was Celotex out there from 1950 something. So we pulled all of it out. There's nothing left up there right now. except the strips that are on the trusses, and we're not pulling them down because those trusses have been there since the fifties, and we just don't wanna stress them any more than we have to. So the new ceiling will be going in later this week, the grid will. As far as some of the changes that he mentioned, the gutter, there was some electrical. The plan that you guys gave us to bid was incomplete. So when we got started, there were situations like the electrical panel, the existing electrical panel was actually opening up to the kitchen sink. That's just illegal, we can't do that. The outside electric panel, the service panel was supposed to remain, but it literally was falling apart. I mean, you could push your finger through the side of it. So we're replacing all of that and upgrading it. So Tim and Eddie came over the other day and we was walking around the building and we discussed the fact that there's 5 different kinds of soffit on it and the fascia looks terrible. So we've got a brand new building, brand new siding, brand new interior, brand new bathrooms, brand new kitchen area, brand new floor. The building's gonna look like it was built this week, you know, but the soffit looked like crap. So we decided that we probably need to go ahead and complete the job as opposed to doing it, you know, 85%. There were some other changes that we made. I don't know how closely y'all looked at the plan. FRP in the bathrooms, I think FRP is horrible, and that's what the plan called for, so we're using subway tile in the bathrooms. It'll look better, and I would much rather put up tile than FRP any day. And it's just more durable, it looks better, it holds up better. There was no allocation for any kind of waterproof surfaces behind the kitchen area, so we got approval. We're doing tile behind the kitchen area as well on the wall instead of having wet stuff directly against a wood wall. So we've made several upgrades ourselves compared to what was on the plan, so that you have a much better end product, and I believe everybody would be completely happy with it. We've sprayed the inside walls today and the place just looks great, and I'm very happy with it. We're probably a few weeks ahead of schedule right now. With any luck, we'll finish that way, even with these changes. But these changes they're necessary. It's not something that doesn't, you know, it's not something where I come in and created something. This is, if you go look at the building and look at what we're discussing, they are absolutely necessary, so.
And I wanna add this too. I want everybody to know that many times we walked into that building and he would say, this isn't right, I'm fixing it, at no cost. That happened in a lot of areas where, you know, they're wanting to put together a very nice project, but they did not charge the city for some of this stuff. It was just like, it's better, we're just gonna go ahead and do it.
Well, there's stuff like the tile and stuff like that. There is a little bit of a cost factor from my end as far as me having to eat some costs, which I don't mind, because at the end of the day, you know, I did the job and it needs to look like something I would do. And I mean, FRP is just awful, but that's what was on the plans. I mean, we put it in, like, we built colors on Temple Parkway and we put 150 sheets of FRP up in the kitchen. It's just terrible and it's just ugly. So we just decided to go ahead and do the job right while we're doing it and get it done. And we're moving along pretty good. They set all the frames for the windows and stuff, and then all of the storefront and all that other stuff was set last week, and the glass is supposed to be in next week, and then we'll start wrapping up. But it was just, there was a lot of stuff going on. There was a lot of extra stuff that we just had to, you know, once you open up a building, anybody that's ever been in business and has done any kind of remodeling, or if you've ever had remodeling at your house, you understand that everything looks lovely until you start opening things up and you realize there's more headaches, and that's just what we run into. So I just wanted to clarify some of that for y'all so you understand that we're not creating work. I can assure you of that.
Well, one of the reasons I was asking about the ceiling is that, realize that, you know, got the strips in there and all that, but I was curious as to what kind of ceiling you're gonna be putting in, because
We're
you
putting in
can't
drop.
attach to those strips.
No, we'll attach to those strips. We're putting in regular grid drop ceilings. So.
Drop ceiling though.
Yeah.
So it'll level it out because it's not
Yeah,
level
you
up
can't
there
do
now.
nothing with that ceiling, and there would be no way to get that building's old, man.
Yeah.
That building's been there longer than I've been around, so, it's, the rafters are not, and the trusses aren't trusses like we get now. Ones we get now are stamped with plates. Those things were hand built on site. They got plywood flitches on them, so they're, you know, they're not level. So we're not going to the existing ceiling. The plan called for a drop ceiling, so we're putting a drop ceiling back in there. And all the panels are gonna match, you know, so it'll be nice. And then Chris, of course, most of you know my brother, Chris Walker. He's doing all the electric, and he's put in a lot of extra stuff as well. So a few of the extra things that Eddie mentioned, we put in designated receptacles on the outside that have off switches inside, so that when somebody's using the building, if they wanna use something outside that has electric, they can turn it on, and we can turn it off. That way everybody ain't up there plugging their stuff into the city property. That's one of the things. We added some additional lighting. We added several additional things inside, receptacles and everything that wasn't necessarily, you know, on the plan. We, like I said, we moved the panel. We added designated circuits in the kitchen. Because the kitchen, you went from having that kitchen that was in there, now your new kitchen is a refrigerator, a sink, and a stove, and that's it. There's no cabinetry or anything. So we did add extra designated circuits, so if people are coming in to do a party, they got stuff for their little, you know, crock pots or whatever. You know, so we added it. Me and Chris grew up in Callaway. I mentioned that the first night whenever you guys worked the project. We've used the building. I've been going to that building since I was 10 years old, so we're making the building like it would be if it was our building, and I think you'll be happy with it. And we did do some extra stuff, like I said, and I think, and, you know, everybody get an opportunity to look at it at some point, but it's moving along pretty good. I don't think anybody had any complaints at this point. We haven't had any trouble, we haven't had any issues with, you know, anything with the public or anything. Everybody walks up and everybody's been friendly, so everything's gone well.
Could you identify yourself for the record?
Me?
Yes,
Charlie
sir.
Walker, Southern Construction Service, sorry.
Good job.
So, any other questions for me?
I have a comment.
Yes,
It seems to me that we should have kept, not spent money on engineering and had you do the work.
You didn't spend money on engineering.
Yeah, we did.
Well, I don't know how, so.
$13,000.
Really?
Yes.
You should have hired me for that. 'cause
That's what I'm saying, that's what I was trying to get to, way back when.
The specifications were just very thin, and they were very inconsistent. So we actually sent several emails to Ashley saying, look, on page 2 it says this, on page 8 it says this, and we had to clarify a few things. But the work is being done, and it's being done properly, and again, we came into the job based on the specs that we had. You know, one of the things was, well, a discussion we had with Eddie, and again, I don't wanna prolong this too much, but, you know, it called for impact rated windows and hurricane shutters. Well, that's dumb. So we backed off of the impact rated windows. We put in storefront windows because they're easier to maintain and easier to take care of, less likely to have problems than vinyl windows. And then we're just doing aluminum pull down shutters on all the openings, which is a much better deal for the city and a much better deal for everybody involved. It's a safer building that way. So we made some common sense adjustments through the course of the project, and I don't think anybody will have any opposition to it when you come look at it. So I know you guys, I haven't been there. I'm there about every day, but I'm not there very much. My guys have made it very clear that they prefer me not to be on the job with them. So,
They love me in Tim.
yeah. So we dip in, I go in, you know, make commentary, double check things. And my guys are very skilled, they can handle their own. And, so we've had good review and good feedback from everybody so far. We got concrete going in next week. We'll start winding this thing down pretty quick, so hopefully.
I only make the comment because I argued the point that, you know, on the beach, I never hired engineers to do my design, I hired a contractor to come in and do the work, you know? And I hope in the future, instead of spending $13,000 on an engineer, that we hire a general contractor. And sit down with that
Unfortunately, you can't
contractor.
always do that, because the important thing is we all did the same scope of work. That's what matters. I can tell you real quickly, I did another job in Gulf County today, and they literally said, this is what we want, a building this size, and it has to be this type of building. They gave us no other specifications. The bids come back from $47,000 to $325,000 because there were no specs. So it's difficult to function like that. So you did do the engineering. I'll refrain judgment
I already
on the
know.
quality that you got for $13,000,
Thank
but at
you.
the same time, we all did the same job, so it's
Right.
no matter.
I understand that, but I listened to what you're saying, and in my mind, I know we did the engineering, it's just that I don't think that we got the money.
I don't
Thank you.
either, but it's not my opinion. Anybody else? We good? All right, thank you.
Anybody else have any comment? Did anybody in the audience want to comment on the change order for the community center? Seeing anybody, gentlemen, we just need a motion.
Motion to approve the Gold Park Community Service Change Order number 2.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. That completes our agenda. We'll go on to commission and staff comments. I'm just gonna be very brief. The only thing I wanna say is I wanna commend Tim and his crew on another successful opening day. I think he said this was number 22, and they just keep getting better. So, good job, guys. We'll go ahead, Commissioner Davis. You're up.
I'll defer mine to catch up. The, only thing I got one for the city or attorney, about addressing about what we need to do about no trucks on certain roads, so we can actually put a legal sign up.
Yeah, we just need to do, well, I need to get with Bill to get the list of roads, let's have him now. We'll go ahead and email me, I'll email, but I think that we have an ordinance, like we talked about, it's this old, it has like 4 roads on it.
Right.
We just need to get a new list of roads and update that.
Make sure, because call Kip, he can't do anything, because it's not
Yeah.
in our ordinance.
I'll reach out to him more.
Is that it, Commissioner? I think Commissioner Rhodes, I think we're,
Okay. I'll defer most of it to, Eddie, to get the report on that, and make comment on something what he's gonna bring up. Ran into something today that, didn't realize because I don't normally drive that way, but the new, oil change shop that we have on the corner of Lakewood and Kendall Parkway. With the banners that are out there and the trees that they've planted, you know, on their property, and banners are, out there actually on the right of way, I believe. But, if you, on Lakewood, going to Temple Parkway, and that's not a controlled intersection because it doesn't have a traffic light, you don't have vision to your left. So it's a hazard. You can't see to the left until you almost pull out into Temple Parkway. And I don't think it should be that way. Now, to the right side where you've got the, with the subway over there, their shrubbery is less than 3 feet, et cetera, and complete visibility to the right side. But, you know, what you're interested in, if you're pulling out to Temple Parkway, that left side over there, and I don't know if it's allowed or not allowed, but if it is allowed, we definitely gotta change that, because you cannot see the traffic, you cannot get the perspective of the traffic coming across there at 45 miles an hour, which they are, so. Bonnie's not here, Bill may know.
I'll have a look at that tomorrow for sure.
Okay. And hopefully we'll get some striping done on the, part of the Highway 22 intersection. There's nothing left on the road now.
It'll happen someday.
Yeah, well, I get that same result every meeting, so.
three of us need to
I would
direct.
just start saying ditto.
Three of us need to direct them. So, there's
No,
two,
I-
there's two of us, we need one more vote.
It's not, it's
Yeah,
not.
so we got three votes.
But it's
We
not
got a
the
third
city, it's not the city that does the strike.
I'll try to figure out, 'cause that's,
It's in the traffic.
this is county and,
Yeah.
it's county and highway and, I'm,
Well, like Lois, can you see past that church?
I'm gonna call him, we'll call Martin.
Okay, I'm finished.
Just, I'm gonna defer most, but I do have one comment. You know, as you all know, I was a little setback last week. I recovered from my surgery, so I was a little slow. So Commissioner Briggs, there's two flags at Gold Park, okay? And there's also a flag at City Hall, and there's also a flag at Veterans Park. For y'all's information, none of them are lit and none of them are coming down. I went in the evenings and I checked them, okay? So when we talk about putting a flag at Brittany Woods, y'all said, well, you know, I don't know if that'd be, you know, we want to do that because somebody would have to take them down. Guess what? None of them are coming down now and none of them are lit. So why can't we put a flag at Brittany Woods?
Or take them down from the others.
Well, then we have to assign somebody to do that.
I mean, just take them down, don't need to put them back up unless we are.
That's what I mean. We went 2 different nights, they were up. So there's 2 flags at Gold Park, and I knew that because Buddy and I walk there every day.
Yeah.
But I was a little slow that day.
I didn't even.
But, however, as you may know, I like to do my homework, so I went in the evenings and I drove around at night, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. And none of those flagpoles are lit. If they're supposed to, they're not. 2 is none of them are coming down. If they're supposed to, they're not.
Well, I don't know about the rule of flags coming down. I know I fly a flag on my dock, but I've also got, lighting to it.
You know, Gold Park is being used, not Gold Park, but Brittany Woods is being used quite a bit. There's a lot of people there. And it's a high traffic area.
A lot of dog in there.
And I just think for a little bit of money, we should, you know, we're not creating, a little bit of money, we can put a flag there.
We won't even put a speed bump down for a little bit. Why should we put more flags?
So, anyway. I'm with Commissioner Davis, that's 2. We should have a flag. We need one more.
Enough of this.
Oh, sure can.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And no one has, because we're not taking them down now. And none of them are lit. I'm not saying they need to be lit, it's just a comment was made.
I mean, that was always been my understanding,
Right.
if it stays up at night, it's supposed to be lit.
We're gonna double check every bit of
Yeah,
this.
check
and
that.
matter of fact,
You should check the
no, matter of fact,
It ain't being done.
no, I mean, we'll check the rules and regulations, we'll make sure we're doing it right.
Yeah. That's all until the city
But right now,
manager.
you're getting a flag.
It's sunset.
It's supposed to be sun up to sunset. Been to be on retiree. I'll tell you when I retire.
Usually seems to have flags in once in a while.
That's all I got there.
Okay, Commissioner Ayers?
Yes, ma'am. Got a couple emails, one of them's about code enforcement, pass it on to the city manager, he took care of it right away. It's a property that's been a problem, but we rode past there, in fact, we rode past several properties to get an idea of what's going on with several different things, including the RV ordinance. Of course, I just mentioned, I met with the city manager, once a week. We visited all the construction sites, including Gore Park, Community Center, and also Veterans Park, and looked at the new fence, doing a great job, it's coming up pretty fast. I went to a Bay County Commission meeting, nothing to really report. Went to opening day baseball and softball, that was really super, Mayor and, Commissioner Briggs were there, we got the mayor lobbed the softball in, I got to go to baseball.
2 strikes.
Yes, both of them are great. And that's all I have.
Okay. City clerk, you have anything?
see, the fence at Veterans Park is about 50% up. Tim's watching that real close. Eartha Bridge, we are probably a week out from finishing the closeout. So I'm expecting to finish up probably next week.
Before you go forward, can I get a copy of what we owe them and versus what our penalties are on that bridge?
Yeah,
What the balance due versus penalties,
yes,
please?
yeah. I'm trying to think.
Sorry.
Probably next
We
week.
haven't gotten their final invoices yet, so it's gonna be, look very, very incomplete, but I can get you.
Right.
Well, you always see on, when we have
The
our
last
meetings.
invoice that we paid, we'd have a balance due, correct?
Yes.
We know what the contract was, and we know what we paid so far. I just wanna know.
Sure.
The difference,
I think we're somewhere between $25,000 and $30,000
and where's our penalties?
In penalties.
In penalties.
Yeah. Now, just so everybody will know, it's not gonna be that we're gonna cut them a check and then they're gonna cut us a check. They'll do the bottom line and there'll be a deduct for whatever.
We'll take the damages out of the.
Yeah, we'll take it out of the balance.
I just wanted to see those figures.
Cemetery drainage, the drainage part is done. We had, did some engineering, just some basic layout plans. We've modified the fence just a little bit, so that, I'll have that back this week, and then, Ashley will get that out for bid immediately on getting the fence, and we'll have two options, one wood, one vinyl.
Okay, that was one of my questions. Thank you.
Parker medians, the trees were delivered today. They're just moving right along with that project. Tim is monitoring that very, very close. The lift stations, we got the bid in on it. That was, what day was that? Friday? That was Friday. We're evaluating those. Looks like it's in budget. As Felicity came back and said, looks good.
No, I haven't heard nothing.
Okay, all right, so, but it looks like, they came in, I think the average was about $435,000 a lift station for a rehab, that's actually really good. So we think we're gonna be in budget on that. Hugh Thomas Drive North, it is out for construction right now, that closes Friday. Of course, that's another grant funded. The roundabout, I talked to FPL today, they're waiting on the final improvement. On their engineering plans, they've got it all engineered out, and we should see that within the next day or so. They have to get those approved before they can let them out, and then, they'll start the process of getting that pole moved.
We don't know when that's gonna happen.
Hmm?
We don't know when FBL is gonna move that pole. They're engineering it, but is it gonna be a month, 2 months, do we have an idea?
They haven't given me one. I will tell you this much, the FPL did make some changes. They've taken out the higher ups on this project. It is down at our local guy that does the work, the groundwork. He works with the city really, really well. We were real happy to see that they pushed it back down on him. He actually had pushed the design team to get that thing done so we can get it expedited. I feel really good over the fact that he's gonna be in charge of getting those poles moved pretty quick. So I don't think it's gonna be as compared to some of the other issues we've had. When I generally get stuff down to him, things tend to get done pretty quickly, so.
Okay,
So it's a positive note, but I do not know when.
I do have another question. Obviously, the runabout's not happening. Are we gonna have to pay extra for them to mobilize to do that since they're done with, boat race, correct?
They're okay. They're
They're
fine.
not gonna charge us another?
No.
Mobile, okay, so we're not gonna have additional fees?
No.
Cause normally they charge for mobilization.
I'll verify that for you.
I just wanna make sure, you know,
I haven't
two,
asked
3
them
weeks
about it.
from now, say, hey, well, we gotta pay
I got a
mobilization
verbal.
since we were late. Cause I can't see that they're gonna have to bring that equipment all the way back out there when we delay the entire project.
Well, the equipment that they're gonna have for that project, the paving machine, we won't have a milling machine on that one, so it's just gonna basically be the paving machine in the road.
I just wanna make sure that when I charge another charge to mobilize, cause normally they do. You know what I'm talking about.
I do. I got a verbal that said no,
Okay,
but I'll get one in writing.
thank you.
I mean,
Sorry to interrupt, but I didn't want to.
Yeah, the fact of the matter is too, They did put mobilization on both of them. They can't charge more than the mobilization cost, even regardless of other things, so.
They put it on both because they were planning on doing both at the same time.
Yes, but that wasn't in the contract, that was all, that was our goal, but it's not in their contract, so. They said they're gonna be okay, and like I said, I'll be more than happy to get that in
Please.
writing. Boat Race Road, is if everybody drove down it, they've done a great job. We're waiting to see, where we're at with our money overall, cause there's still some grant funding money that's there. And we're gonna be looking at fixing some of the stormwater down through there that's within that project right away, so. We're looking at some stormwater, we wanna go ahead and use that money up. Our cost share is still the same, so we need to use that money up. Beacon Point, we had some last minute questions come in. There was a delay in getting the information. We received that information today. Due to the amount of time, we did extend it a week.
It's next Thursday.
Yes, we extended it to next Thursday, so from Friday to next Thursday. They keep asking questions.
That's on the front parcel, correct?
Correct. And we've already had a good report on the community center. I will brag on him, he's not here, but man, they have done a spectacular job. Probably one of the easier construction people I've ever had to work with. They just have a desire to make that building the best that it can be.
Yep.
And they started off with.
Can-do attitude.
And then finally, Cherry Steve, our utility coordinator, has been blowing up, all the utilities. We did have a, discussion, I think it was last Thursday, we had a big meeting amongst everybody. We're sending a surveyor out to mark. Do not know when the surveyor is gonna come out and mark the boxes. But he's supposed to be getting it done so they can come out and do what they need to do. We're still waiting on a schedule. It has come to the point now to where the state is requesting the schedule, construction schedule.
I don't know why.
Yeah, because we're a year out on the grant. And so that's why.
We're not gonna lose that money, are we?
As of right now, no. It was $1 million in state appropriations that went towards that, so, we're basically letting them know that it's gotta be done.
City attorney, isn't that on a time schedule? We have a certain amount of time to use that money?
It'll be in the grant agreement.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the grant.
So if we exceed that, what happens?
We asked for a time extension.
And they've been involved the whole time.
And that's what we'll have to do, is we will have to go through, but I think what they're wanting is they want to see the schedule so that, to justify the extension, and that it's not just sitting in limbo, so.
And then before you go on, do we have any idea how much money we spent so far on the coordinator? How many hours he's put into this?
I do not, I can get you that number if
If you
you
could,
could.
please. Because right now, we have an open-end contract with him. You know, we're not putting any restrictions as to what we can spend. Now, obviously, we want to get the work done, but, you know, are we in tens of thousands or thousands, or where are we with that? I would like to know where we're at, because that's something we didn't budget for.
And that's about the high level of it.
Did you cover anything anybody wondered about?
I think so. I can't think that's too late. Oh, my little Kobe is back here.
I cut it a little bit.
We used to have meetings till 11:12.
Yeah.
So they're in here from Cherry Street do emails like they did from Bertha Bridge with updates.
Well, that's the utility coordinator. That's the utility, we haven't started the project, so once that project starts, yes, we will be getting probably bi-weekly updates,
So,
because it's the same company.
so I guess, so what you're telling me then, we're not gonna have CEI, the utility coordinator is gonna be the CEI?
The same company is, but it won't be the same guy.
So we're gonna have a CEI and utility coordinator?
When the utility coordinator's done, we won't be using him and the CEI.
Okay, I just wanna make sure.
The CEI kicks in at construction, and then we won't need a utility coordinator.
Right, that's what I want, and Just asking.
Yes, sir. I don't mind. I'm playing for the days of blue.
Okay. You good?
I got nothing else.
Okay, we'll go ahead and read the announcements. April the 1st, does it look like we will be having a planning board meeting?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not potential, there will be a planning board meeting on April 1st. Then the next commission meeting is April the 8th. And don't forget Kite Day, that's sponsored by the Sheriff's Department, is April the 12th at 10 a.m. And that will be held out right outside here. Anybody aware of anything else that wasn't on here? Any other announcements?
Oh, no.
No, I'm not done.
Oh,
I just
okay,
didn't
I
know
just
if
wanna
there was
make sure.
anything that got missed.
Yeah.
No, okay, we will go ahead and into public participation on non-agenda. Yes, sir?
Good evening, Fred Valco, 5712 Kevin Circle. First, I would like to support Commissioner Griggs in his position on Take 5. I'm glad to see you driving around when it was just a parking lot and you had clear view to the oncoming northbound traffic on Tyndall Parkway. It was not a problem. The building was set back. When they put the trees up, it was a minor irritation. My wife is a little older. She's getting careful driving, so she had to pull out a little bit. When they put the feathers up and the wind blows from the east, there's 2 foot of feathers that you gotta go around. It's almost impossible. You gotta get near, and Tyndall Parkway is not slow. So going north on Tyndall Parkway is not a problem. The flags over at Subway, they look about the same distance from the roadway, but these just impact you more for oncoming traffic.
We're gonna have that addressed tomorrow.
The second item I have is who has responsibility for the street lighting in Callaway? Is it your responsibility or is it FPL's? Because I have several, since January the 8th of last year after the tornadoes, I have several street light areas that are having a lot of traffic light issues. One of them, their pole snapped. It had a light on it, they didn't put a light back on it.
You're supposed to, FPL has their website, and you go right on it, give the address, and they'll get on.
Okay, because
I've used them, and they actually respond.
Okay, because I have another one straight, the next light down, which I guess was a homeowner's street light. You can buy it for $5 a month or something like that. The one on the corner is a once in a while street light, and I have one on my street, which has about a 10-second street light.
If you can get a poll number and put that in.
And I know they changed their poll number system. They have like 6 different numbers on it right now. A lot of times they just work by addresses. Thank you. That's all I have.
Yes, sir.
I'll also add, if you go on there, on the website, a lot of times there's an interactive map, so you can actually pick the pole.
Yeah.
I walk by them every day. Now that it's getting summer, the streetlights that aren't there, and, you know, aren't that much of an effect. We walk our dog at 6 o'clock, but in December, at 6 o'clock, it's pretty dark.
Oop, real quick question, I just went through this 2 years ago. Was it on a certain neighbor's property?
Those home
I
light,
forget one that was missing, they didn't put it back and dug deeper into it, come to
No,
find out,
that
neighbor
is-
2 doors down was paying for it.
right,
Died, and anyway, when he cut off his power bill, that light, he was paying for that light, but his family didn't.
that light down there was damaged. No, it was shattered by, when the power lines broke. That light was shattered, it was just hanging there.
Right.
The one on the main power pole that runs down Lakewood, right by the back of Kmart, there's 2 roads that intersect back there, the Kmart parking lot and North Burkett Drive. And those lights are the ones that are gone. The one that, even if they just put the one back on the pole that it was on, that would provide 50%, because right now there's 400 to 500 foot of street that has no light on it.
Right.
So,
I will tell you that they will not respond to a private light. That's up to whoever's paying for that light.
that light is fine. The other one was an FPL light.
Okay, and that's.
That was facing the street like all the other street lights. The other one was facing the homeowner's property. And I said, that light doesn't work. The one on the corner of Gay Avenue and Lakewood Drive, that's a sometimes light. There's one light this side of that. then the next light is all the way over here at Burkett Drive before you get anywhere. So that whole stretch down where Kmart is, and that tail light at Kmart, even when Kmart was running, it was not always on. So, but that whole stretch gets very dark at night. We can't carry flashlights, we wear a banner, anything we can do just to keep from getting hit. As you know, last year, I think it was a police officer was hit in Parker doing the same thing, walking his dog at night, and was killed because of the same problem, poor street lighting, so.
Let me give credit where the credit's due. Even though I drive the city, multiple times a week and all that business, I don't drive all directions.
Right.
So a citizen pointed out what the situation was on
I've been driving that corner for 38 years.
On that corner. But, so I hadn't gone in that direction.
Right. But it's fine, if the wind's blowing from the west, banners are blowing this way, and I understand they're a new business, but do you have your vision zone thing you were talking about in one of your other, items there? And that might need to be addressed, but when the wind is blowing from the east, that flag sticks out there, and literally you almost have to drive to the curb. It's almost as bad as, not Fox, but further back where the Tingle takes a little bit of a jog, and they have a forest there. You almost had to drive up past the forest in order to see any cars coming down Tingle.
Well, almost on any subject, I go out and check.
Yeah.
So when that was brought to my attention, I went out there and checked and, you know,
It
definitely.
can be dangerous, especially for an older driver who's tending to sneak out there, you know. They wanna go and be sure that the traffic isn't coming, that's that Tyndall Parkway.
Fortunately, I have quick things. If anybody's interested in the Panama City races, political races, tomorrow Kiwanis Club is hosting the commissioners at 11:30 at 131 Harrison. Next week on Wednesday, they are hosting the Panama City mayoral candidates at 11:30. And also the two people, the for and against side for the referendum. Referendum, is that the right word? Yes, for Panama City.
For the beach drive.
For Beach Drive, so if anybody's interested, those are those dates. And then I wondered, Mayor Henderson, do you know, somewhere between you and where you live and we live, there's a rooster that somebody got in the last 2 weeks. And if anybody can figure out where that rooster is, we can report it, but we don't know. We just know at 5 a.m. it starts, and it keeps going to about 6:15, and then it finally shuts up, so. Somewhere between you and I, not on Lanning Road, it's behind it, somewhere, there's a rooster now.
No, I have not heard of that. I'll keep my ears and eyes open. Yes, sir?
Can we get this word on the agenda?
Sure.
Thank you.
What do you think?
Fluoride in the water on the agenda.
Oh, yes, sir. I'm gonna take care of that.
Thanks.
Yes, sir?
Don Henry, 431 Tank Pass. I know Cherry Street's not gonna get paved, by the way. From Star Avenue to Bertha going west, and somebody fixed those bumps there. They've been paved one time before, and then all crooked, all come up.
That's a county road.
No, Cherry Street, I'm talking about Cherry Street. Star Avenue to Cherry Street, going to Cherry Street, going west. That is a terrible place there, the rest of it is all right.
It's gonna get done someday.
No, but I mean, if you bring some asphalt,
I'll drive down there and take a look.
you and him drive, y'all don't drive that way, do you?
I drive every way.
You don't drive that way. Harris, take it down that way.
Yes, I do.
It's rough.
Another thing, Florida Fire and Light website is terrible on traffic lights, and street lights. You got one right down here at Veterans Park down there, it's been out, and then I have a phone number on it, but it's not on the website. Check it out. It's terrible.
Where's it at?
Veterans Park, when you go to Veterans Park, there's a pole right there.
Okay.
Light is out, comes in, it comes out.
Okay.
There's a number on it, I can't find it on the website.
Okay. I'll go get the number and I'll report it.
Why is the citizens gotta stop somewhere to get a tag on the darn pole? You're driving down the road, you see a light out, you gotta run around and go out there and look for the number on the pole?
No.
How come, huh?
Well, because we don't drive around at night, probably.
No, nobody else does at nighttime.
Yeah, we're old.
We gotta stop and get a night light, we gotta get a pole number. That's ridiculous.
I thought the interactive, but it's not listed on the interactive map either.
Yeah, no, I think Callaway's got one on the website. It ain't on there. Look it up.
But FPL, there, Matt, you can go by where you're at on the road and say that light pole's in this corner or whatever.
But it's that one for the Dennis Park, not on there.
Right, so that
It's
may
not
not
on
be,
that, okay. I'll get it on the list.
you don't have to actually have the number.
Yeah, but it's hard to do.
Does anyone else like to speak?
Actually, don't use half the numbers on the poles.
Mr. Schultz? Okay.
You know the audit's done. The auditors wanna know if you want them to come in person or do it on the phone. And they can do via the phone or a Zoom on 4/8 or 4/22, but if you want it in person, it's gotta be 4/22. You know, it's busy at auditor's time, so if we don't book it with Wade right now, we're not. We're gonna have to put it out. So
You
when
know,
do we
last year we did
The
phone.
presentation for the audit. Oh, I
So,
know.
We've done it on phone.
Is everybody good with phone?
Yeah.
So
We can
if
do
you wanna
phone.
set, if you can set them up for the
Yeah.
8th,
Maybe.
we can go ahead and get that done. Thank you, Mr. Schultz.
Cost less that way.
Yeah, well, and why have them drive here, it's not like we have issues.
Ashley, you got that
Yeah.
for the agenda?
Oh, okay.
Be under
Be in presentations in the beginning of the agenda.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, yes, we have a motion to adjourn.
So.
Thank y'all for sticking with